You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks. Happy Monday, everybody. Hope everybody is having a good start to the week. We are, and I'm going to introduce you to our very special guest today. I've been looking forward to having Natalie on for a really long time. I first found her on Instagram, but before I get into all of that, I want to make sure that you guys like, subscribe. Also, down in the description below, there's a couple of things you need to pay attention to. Number one, if you'd like to become a member and support this channel, we'd really appreciate it. It goes a long way. It's a couple of bucks a month. You'll never notice it's gone. But also down in the description are all of Natalie's links or social media links. Make sure you go follow her. I got nothing but great things to say about her, but I also want to say hi to everybody over in the chat. We got Ex-Samurai, Juju B, we got Mackenzie Moore, we got Cindy Shepard, Nikki for Freedom, Hazel Bennett, and many, many more. There's iRoll. Can't forget iRoll. Tammy McDonald, Lace, and all of our other moderators. Ben, thank you guys for everything that you do for this channel. You keep things regulated over in the chat and keep it fun. Also, folks, I will try to get as many super chats in as possible. We will prioritize those. And of course, we will try to get as many live comments, but I don't want to waste any more time because also tonight, at 8 p.m., we actually have Outspoken Samantha coming on as well. It's going to be a great, fun show. I think we're going to start doing that more often, folks. We're going to have, somebody, and I'm going to try to twist Natalie's arm to stay over for that time. We'll see what her schedule's like. But we got a lot of people wanting to come on, a lot of people that we want to come on, and we're running down the dates. So we're going to start having, the first hour with someone and another hour with someone else, and hopefully they stay on. I love it. The more, the merrier. I think it's a little crazy, more than like 3 or 4, but other than that. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and welcome Natalie Beisner to the show. Natalie, thank you so much. Thank you for being such a good voice of reason. You're a godly woman, very impressive. You're all over Fox News and everywhere else. You finally have reached the pinnacle here on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. You're welcome for that. But
well, thank you, Gary. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that we finally made it happen.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. So, I had been following you, I don't know, probably for a year or two, and loved all your content on Instagram. That's where I knew you from. And I'll be honest with you, I'm really so sick of Candace. I don't want to spend the whole time. I actually want to hear more about your story, because you have a great story and we're going to focus on that. But I do want to mention, because this is really important. Somewhere probably around October, November, I came across one of your posts. And you were kind of going hard in the paint against Candace. And I hadn't been paying attention to Candace. I had no idea what she was saying about any of this stuff. Like, I didn't really follow Candace. I knew her from, the Daily Wire. In my mind, she was still this conservative, good person that was, clearly, she was a rising star. And the first thought, and I kid you not, I was like, Natalie, why are you being all catty, girl? Like, why are you going after her? Clearly, this is like a jealousy thing. And you said some wild things in there. And I was like, all right, before I comment on this at all, I'm going to go check out, because you referenced an episode, or like maybe it was that day. I don't remember what it was, but I went to the episode you were referencing. And number one, first and foremost, I was shocked that you were absolutely correct about what she was saying. I think it was when she was saying something about getting shot from underneath the table. I don't remember exactly. But the other thing that stood out to me even more than that was I immediately noticed the manipulative language that she was using and the tactics that she was using to deceive people. And from there on out, my eyes were opened. But you were the first one that I saw doing this. I'm not saying that there weren't others, but even back then, that was not, that was brave of you, right? It is not easy to go up against people like her with 6 million plus followers and everything else. So number one, just thank you for your courage. Thank you for trailblazing and leading the way, and, opening everybody's eyes, because I think you were, like I said, you were the first on this, and you weren't afraid to, you didn't shy away from that challenge, because it is one. Uh-oh, did we lose Natalie? All right, folks, She might have some sort of internet connection issue. She will be there. She is. There she is. I said a lot of great things. There were a lot of gems in there. You probably
Middle
missed
of you complimenting me. So I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Hopefully that doesn't. I heard part of what you were saying, the story about seeing me saying outrageous things on Candace, and you went to go double check and realized I was maybe right.
You were 100% right. And what I was saying was, that took a lot of guts back then, because even now, again, she has 6 million plus followers. She has a army of, look, I don't even mean this in a hyperbolic way. I mean this genuinely. She has an army of occultists behind her that will defend her no matter what. She could say the sky is freaking black, and suddenly people will be doing content on why the sky is black, defending it, pushing it, and it's wild to watch. But the point here is that you were brave in doing that, and I appreciate your bravery and the integrity to stand up, even when I guarantee you, because I know what it's like, even when the world is going to come against you, and that's what Christians should do. And by the way, that's what Americans should do.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I wish it was different circumstances. I wish it still wasn't going on. And it's probably the least enjoyable thing I've ever done online. I went from liberal, where everyone I knew was a liberal and then hated me for no longer being a liberal, to conservative, not overnight. But even that was a little more enjoyable than what's happening here. Like, these people are just, I think they're actually leftist, some of them covert leftists, but they're really they're brutal, they're vicious, and it's basically as nonsensical as arguing with a leftist.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I just saw this super chat, and I'm going to address it now because I don't know who you are or what you're talking about. And I saw this in my comments on X earlier. So why did you have Sean Campbell unjustly dox me? Look, I know Sean Campbell like other people in X. I don't control Sean Campbell. I can't take responsibility for anything that he does. He mentioned going through people and people that are claiming to be certain things. I didn't direct that. So if you have a problem with what Sean Campbell did, please take it up with Sean Campbell. Gary's not responsible for Sean Campbell's actions, the veiled reckoning. So we'll go ahead and get rid of that. But yeah, I want to hear your story, Natalie, because I've heard bits and pieces of it. You were basically a liberal. I don't know. Talk to us about that. Why did you change?
In a nutshell, it was the response to COVID. I'm in Los Angeles, and so the response to COVID was pretty harsh and pretty extended. We had a mask mandate for 2 straight years without stopping indoors, and I was like a reflexive liberal. I didn't know what I didn't know. I just went every 4 years and voted for the Democrat president. And I thought, like, if you care about people and you're compassionate, then you vote Democrat. And then the response to COVID, at first I was on board with it because I don't want to kill someone's grandma or myself. But as it was going on, and then especially when the George Floyd thing happened in the summer, and we watched all of those medical professionals and the talking heads who were telling us to stay home because we might die from COVID, they were supporting and encouraging these protests, which I support everyone's right to peacefully protest, but that's not the only thing that was happening, obviously. And the hypocrisy was just stunning to me. And when I brought it up to the people I knew who were liberal, which is basically everyone other than my parents, I was called racist and selfish. And that was pretty much across the board the only reaction that I got. There was no real curiosity. And it was kind of this illogical idea that I had just like woken up one morning and decided to be racist, or that I had always been like a latent racist, and now it was finally coming out just because I had questions about the response to COVID. So I'm not anti asking questions, and I'm not for the government no matter what. And that kind of lifted the veil from my eyes, because I thought Democrats were for the little guy. And I think that I'm kind of the little guy. Like, I need to go to work. And it was clear relatively early on that this was not going to be as bad as they said initially. And thank God for that. But there was no course correction in Los Angeles. We just kept doing the same thing forever. And then at one point we did have vaccine passports, and I was not vaccinated. So that brought in like a whole other thing. About a year in, I'm sorry it took me that long, I stopped wearing a mask, and that brought on like a whole new level of harassment. And so it just made me realize okay, well, maybe the people I've been supporting who I thought cared about me as someone who's paycheck to paycheck or needs to work and help out my family, maybe they're not actually for the working man. And I started listening to voices that I had never listened to before because a lot of them also happened to be questioning COVID as well. These people who were more on the right. One of them was Charlie Kirk. And I kind of realized, oh, okay, the conservative position on a lot of things makes sense because it was the first time that I had really started paying attention to politics and realizing that it mattered beyond just saying, hey, I'm a liberal and I care about people. And so it wasn't like an overnight transition of like blue team to red team because I felt betrayed or whatever. But over the course of about maybe 6 months to a year, I started paying attention. I became more patriotic for like the first time in my life. And I realized that the conservative position makes the most sense very frequently. And I think that's obviously because we have God on our side. One of the biggest things for me was abortion. Trump was a huge one. I realized, oh, I'd been lied to about Donald Trump. I thought he was a racist who thought Nazis were very fine people. And that feels like, a punch in the gut to realize you've been lied to. Because clearly, if he's as bad as you say, you don't need to lie about him. He's just awful and you can be honest about how awful he is. But I remember watching the full Charlottesville press conference in 2020. It took me 3 years to see the whole thing and realizing he did not say very fine people on both sides, including the neo-Nazis. And that was like stunning to me because I believed the media and they told me that he had, and I didn't question it ever. And so I ended 2020, voting for President Trump, and I was proud to do it. And it was just like kind of a whirlwind and I just started speaking out online because I do feel like I don't want to say wasted years of my life, but I I feel like I spent years of my life believing a lot of lies, and living this, liberal, atheist, feminist, secular lifestyle and having these beliefs. And, I started out speaking about COVID and BLM, and it kind of just grew from there.
That's pretty wild. And, one of the things that stood out to me just now, because I'm always wanting to get inside the mind of a liberal and really understand what they're thinking. And now I have an opportunity for that. You said, for the first time in my life, I felt patriotic.
Mhm.
Talk to me about that. Like when you were a Democrat and you identified as a liberal, like how did you view the United States?
I didn't hate the United States, but it's kind of weird, I had a good education and I'm not Gen Z, I'm a millennial, so I was kind of before everything got so crazy. My parents sent me to Catholic school my whole life. But I don't think you're taught about some of these things. Like I don't think you're taught about the ills of socialism and all the evil that it's wrought. And I don't they obviously you're taught about American history, but there's not like this patriotism fostered even then, and I'm sure it's even worse now. And I did not have a respect for my country that I should have had. And it was only when I started pushing back against COVID and I started becoming more politically involved that really for the first time in my life I felt that patriotism. So I wasn't that far gone to where, I hated the country and disrespected it, but I didn't ever feel connected to how special it was to be an American before that. It took like being one of the lone people in LA, it felt like standing up against tyranny and the COVID response that to make me feel, this pride in our country, which is maybe a little bit counterintuitive because it was sort of a hard time in the country. But yeah, it was the first time that I remember feeling, just reading history books and feeling proud to be an American.
Now, you were talking about, and I know one of your kind of big issues is abortion, which I love. I don't love abortion. I love that that's an issue,
Right.
anti-abortion. Um,
Yes.
Being a liberal, like, was that something that changed, or had you always been anti-abortion?
No, no, I would have called myself pro-choice, but now I call it pro-abortion. I did donate to Planned Parenthood, which I'm deeply regret. Again, it sounds so foolish to say because I did have a good education. I genuinely thought for a long time that we did not know when life begins. I thought it was like, oh, we're still kind of figuring it out. I never really had to think about it because I'd never been faced with abortion in my personal life. And so it was just sort of, it was this very like superficial political activism, if that's what you even want to call it, where I would just repost things on Facebook and, again, just take it as gospel that if you care about people, if you care about women and non-white people, well, then you vote Democrat, like obviously. And I never had to think about it until it came to my doorstep, with COVID. And once I started looking into abortion, there was this story that took place, I think it was spring of I think it was 2022, about the DC-5, which was not a lot of people heard about it, but there was this box that these anti-abortion activists confiscated from this awful abortion center in DC. Do you
Yeah,
remember that? And
I
they were
do.
doing, yeah, okay. So, and it was 115 fetuses, their bodies, and then 5 late term ones. And they look like babies. I mean, those 5, they are babies. They look like babies that you would maybe find in like a NICU. And that was like the thing that sent me over the edge of, okay, well, clearly this is wrong because this is late term abortion. It's a center. I think it's all wrong now, but just obviously something is wrong. You can see there, one of them has like a blue eye that's open and staring at you. It was really disconcerting. And the more I learned about abortion, the more I realized that actually, and this is like across the board when you go from leftism to conservatism, at least my experience was uh, all of the truth, all of the logic, all of the rationality, all of the science is on the side of life. On the side of abortion, it's really just emotion. That's
Yeah.
all that it is. It's not actually any science and it's not consistent. I like, to kind of break things down logically. And it is one of those situations where they're constantly contradicting themselves and there's really no coherent through line there. It's essentially just the fact that you don't want to tell women what to do. And so you're willing to sacrifice a preborn human for it. And I'm sorry that it took me so long to realize that, oh, actually, it is a human and it's also alive, barring abortion or miscarriage. And it just makes sense pro-life. Yeah, that was one of the biggest issues for me where I realized, okay, what I was supporting was just emotion and not anything else.
Now, I mean, had you heard messaging to abortion before? Like, and then, if you had, like, how did you react to that? Because I think you're right. Like, they don't even have a good sales pitch. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't take much to kind of puncture the lies of this, but for some reason, the things that they're putting out are effective. Like, what was your reaction to when people said, I mean, you had heard some counter messaging. Like, what was your reaction to some of those things as you were kind of stuck in that ideology?
I think I was just always focused on, well, a woman has to have that right to choose, and she's got to, and you don't think about it. One time I got kicked off, I think it was when it was Twitter, I got a temporary suspension for like 24 hours or something for posting those images of the DC-5, so most people, I don't think obviously have it shoved in their face. I think a lot of people do not know what abortion entails. I genuinely think some of these people, because I was one of them and I talked to a lot of them online, I do think they actually think that somehow it's not alive or it's not human, like it's on the way, like something magical happens in the birth canal. I think a lot of people like shove it under the rug and you don't think about it unless and until you're actually faced with it, confronted with it. And so that's essentially what I did, because I didn't have to do anything else. And I didn't really have to reckon with it until I was listening to, these other conservative voices who obviously were speaking out about COVID and BLM, but then also I was getting this other conservative ideology mixed in with that. And then I started looking into it on my own. But yes, a fetus is a whole individuated, genetically distinct living human organism. It's not yet alive or not yet human. And you were a fetus at one point. Like you were not sperm and you were not your mother's egg, but you were a zygote, an embryo, and a fetus. And that's you. Like you already exist and all your DNA was there. And so I think it is unjustifiable to kill that. And I think that's the rhetoric that's been used to justify essentially every single human rights violation throughout history is this idea that, oh, they're not really human. They're not fully human, right? They're not totally like me. And I do think that is unjustifiable.
And I also think it's strategic in, I don't know, diminishing the value of human life to begin with.
Mhm.
And I think that's a big element of communism, socialism, you can call it globalism, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, that is an element of this where it's like we're just this collective, the individual doesn't matter. And that's why, that's Americans have always seen that as antithetical to everything that we believe. Like we prioritize individual rights over the state, over the collective. When we need to, we can come together and be a collective and work collectively, but that's not how we exist every single day. And that is really what the Constitution was founded upon. And I do think that there is a very subversive element of that, of the individual rights. And I think if you can, you can trick people into believing that this baby that you can see on a sonogram, like is not alive, not real. They move.
Right.
I mean, my God, you get into some of the videos that I've seen. I don't want to get too graphic for the sake of everybody, but YouTube, like, even when they're going in there to abort the child, it's like a dodging away from this. And, it's just incredible that it's such an evil, right? One of the things I always talk about is I hope one day we look back on abortion in the same disgust, or even more so than we do slavery. It is wild. Well, I'm thankful that, after it's all said and done, COVID woke you up. And I think it woke a lot of people up to,
It
I think
did.
there's a lot of stories like yours out there.
Yeah, if I could make one point about the rights that you were bringing up, because I do think a lot of liberals, obviously, they are maybe not obviously, but when I was on that side, I was motivated by compassion and by empathy. I think some of them have genuine intent. And, if
Sure.
the right to life is not protected, that's like the foundation of all rights, then I think every other right is left vulnerable to attack. And if the most vulnerable group among us, which is not illegal immigrants or women or gays or anything, that it's the preborn, those who literally have no voice. If they're not protected, then I think every other group is left open to attack. So if you care about these other groups, I think you must necessarily care about the preborn, because if we, hang them out to dry and literally kill them, then who else is going to be protected, and what other right is going to be protected?
No, I couldn't agree more. Talk a little bit about, like, when you were growing up, you said you went to a Catholic school. Did you always consider yourself religious? How did you get from that point to where you are now?
When I was growing up, I wanted to be a nun. I wanted to be the Virgin Mary when I grew up, actually, but I was gonna settle for a nun. I used to dress up like a nun and then put myself in timeout when I did. My I was a good kid, I think. I was not a handful. I would literally put myself in timeout. No, but I went to Catholic school my whole life. I completed all the sacraments up through confirmation, and I left the Catholic Church, I think just because I was like 18, 19, and that's kind of what you do. But also the scandal, scandal with the priest was kind of
Sure.
coming to light at that moment. And I actually had people protesting for a lot of my senior year outside of my high school because it had been there for like 50 years, and they claimed that priests had done things while they were there. And so it was just kind of maybe an excuse to leave and rebel against my upbringing and my parents. But no, I was atheist and agnostic for a long time after that, and it was essentially the response to COVID. And so my political awakening happened before any religious one did. And it was, at first, I think it was sort of, again, superficial, and just realizing that maybe society benefits when we all follow Christian values. And so I'm going to go towards that. But I started wanting to, open my Bible during the lockdowns. It was a very isolating time. Obviously, I told you it lasted, I think it's isolating for everyone, but it lasted a very long time in LA. And then I started wanting to go back to church, which was hard to do because Basically all of them were closed. And actually, unfortunately, the Archdiocese of LA, I would have gone back to a Catholic church because that's all I knew. I thought everyone was Catholic if you believed in Jesus. So this was like that's another thing that I guess I don't remember my history of church history. But the Archdiocese of LA actually refused any kind of COVID vaccine exemptions. I would go on these parish websites near me and they would be pushing the vaccine. And unfortunately, with the Catholic Church, when it's like a top down thing, well, no priest is going to do his own thing because he's under the orders of the Archbishop and all of that. And so I was kind of forced out of, I was forced to look elsewhere beyond the Catholic Mass because it just wasn't, I was very anti the shot. I was very anti pushing it. I was very anti the idea because it's one thing to follow the government, right? And just do the best you can as a church. It's another thing to say, hey, we're actually not going to help you with religious exemptions. Like the government did not actually make you do that. And so that was just sort of a bridge too far for me. And so I kind of was forced to look elsewhere beyond the Catholic Church. And ultimately, I think that's been a good thing for me. I know that's not everyone's experience. But to me, it was the first time that I felt as though I really heard and experienced the gospel was outside of a Catholic mass. And I know that's a touchy subject, but really it's been since Charlie's assassination that I've started to really deepen in my faith because Charlie, for a long time, it was like, oh, well, I'm no longer a liberal and now I'm on the right. And that's what matters. And fighting Democrats is what matters. But with what happened to Charlie, I have really started to realize that actually being not a liberal or not a Democrat is not enough. And that what matters is Jesus. Like that is what matters. And people can be not liberals and not Democrats. And I think some of them are the people, that you and I engage with all the time. And they can still be really lost. And just because you don't vote Democrat doesn't mean that we're on the same team. And so it's started to be less superficial. And I know we don't want to go too much into that, but just in seeing the level of
I would love
evil
to
that
go
I've
into that
not seen.
actually.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a level of evil I've never experienced in my life. The internet is like a horrible place, but usually you move on from somebody. Like you don't have a sustained bullying campaign, especially towards someone who lost their husband.
Mhm.
And honestly, and I don't just say this to like say it, to be falsely humble or something. I can see the worst parts of myself in Candace. And I genuinely mean that. Like the most sinful parts of myself, I can see it. And I don't think I would ever do what she's doing. It doesn't mean I've done what she's done or like I condone it, but I recognize that and like I want to flee from that. And I mess
Mhm.
up sometimes, like famously mess up sometimes. But then I repent and I try again, which I think is something that's missing in Candace. There doesn't seem to be repentance or conviction. In fact, I don't think she ever thinks she does anything wrong. And so, even though we all thought maybe a revival was going to happen after Charlie Kirk, and I don't mean to be falsely Pollyannish about it, but I know God works everything for good. And I do think he's using this to bring people closer to him because when I watch what Candace is doing, I want to flee from the part of myself that could be like that. I want to flee from all of that. And if I don't stay in the Bible and if I don't prioritize that, then I am going to F up and I'm going to start like getting happy fingers and saying stuff that I regret and later delete and all that. And so it has really been a convicting thing for me to watch all of this because it's just like in your face evil. And I want to make sure that I'm not that. I want to make sure that I'm not someone with, Jesus in my bio, but then not in the words that I speak online or in the way that I'm carrying myself. I feel like there's so many people like that, especially women. There's something about women doing it that's very just not conservative at all. There's like this, group of women, and I've been that woman too, who like claims conservatism and Jesus, and then they have the foulest mouths online. And
Mhm.
I don't want to do that. And so this has been a process where I've really deepened my faith to where it's, more than just kind of that superficial, yeah, I'm a Christian conservative.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's something I'm always trying to check myself as well. Like
Mhm.
about 6 times a day, I start with a expletive-ridden diatribe,
Mhm.
and then I like, oh, hold on, Gary, like you got to delete that.
Yes, yes.
Um,
I hear you.
because I think you're right. Like it's not just it's important to fight because I do think
Mhm,
we're faced. This is evil, and like,
mhm,
but it's not just that. It's not just important to fight. It's how we fight. And I think that
mhm,
is as important as identifying. It's great. Okay, you identified an evil. Which, by the way, once I saw what you saw when it comes to Candace, like I was just sitting around for like a couple weeks, and I'll be honest, I was like, hey, you know what? Everyone else is going to see this real quick, and they're going to see what's going on here. And it was bugging me, I feel 100%. It was like God called me, like, no, it's going to be you need to speak up about this, and I hope
mhm,
other people are out there. And it's not just Candace, folks. This isn't just about Candace.
mhm,
And Candace isn't even the real threat. And I keep saying this is like what we're preparing for now is what is to come. And, there's going to be something, the people that are behind this, the forces that are behind this, we can go all the way from evil to foreign adversaries. I think it's all there. This is just the beta test. And what we're going to see is something more compelling, someone or a group of people that have more charisma, that are more convincing. And this is just the test. But it's like, even to some extent now, it's like you sit around like, why aren't more people talking about this? Can't you see what's happening? Don't you see how un-American this is? Don't you see how evil this is to accuse people time and time again of murder and to like this is fraud. This is just
mhm,
fraud. And I sent a post today. Somebody was like, "Oh, I don't think it's Candace that's on trial." And I was like, "Actually, she should be on trial. Like she's defrauding millions of people out of millions of dollars, convincing them things that are not true. I mean, this is like on the scale of Enron, in my opinion. I mean, it's fraud. That's what it
mhm.
is. And I think that's the thing is like we as Americans, we can't sit around and just like, all right, when's someone going to do something about this? Like, and kind of what you were saying, this is this is just the beginning, and this is a test, I think, and a revelation of like, hey, who's going to be on the side of good in preparing people for, I think, something much worse down the road.
You're probably right. That's frightening to think about. I'm exhausted already, honestly. Like it's all I can do. And you're right that it's not just Candace. I talk about her the most because well, I feel like she's the most influential. I know you think Barron is probably more of a threat, and you're probably right about that. I honestly don't know a lot about Baron Coleman and Ian Carroll. I see what they post clips here and there, but it's all I can do to just keep up with Candace. And even that,
Sure.
I've kind of backed off a little bit because it gets to you. And I haven't backed off completely, but I was for months watching every episode start to finish and clipping, and there'll be like 30 or 40 things in an episode that you have to call out, and it gets exhausting,
It
calling
does.
out the ill logic and the inconsistencies and the lies and the way that she shifts her story. And I think in the same way you have to like guard your mind and your heart with what music you listen to and what movies, this is one of those things. And I'm always kind of struggling with how much do I focus on it and how much do I not? Because at the end, I think this is so important, but also at the end of the day, there's so much going on in the country, right? And in the world. And the weird thing about Candace is that she seems to have willingly given up her influence that she had. She was friendly with the president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world. Like she could be maybe not Charlie, in the president's ear like that, but she could be one of those people and she could actually be shaping things. And instead she's doing this asinine thing that is going to not even have, well, hopefully not any bearing on the trial. I hope she doesn't taint the jury, but she's not even working for the defense. So she's not actually even shaping the outcome of this trial, although she might by tainting the jury. And then all these other really important things are going on in the world. And she's chosen to like make herself, I don't want to say not influential because she is, but she's chosen to almost she could have been in the room where it happens, where a lot of this stuff happens, and she chose to not be. And she was at one time. And so I'm also aware of that as well, not just guarding my heart and spirit and not falling into temptation and sin because it makes me so angry, but also all the other things going on in the world. And we're talking about this BS. It's hard to navigate sometimes. Honestly, I struggle with it. You know that. We've kind of spoken about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I think this is tied into, and that's what I didn't see. I saw the potential for it. I didn't think it would get to the point where we're at. Like I knew what she was doing. I was like, this is a psyop. I think this is being pushed. I could already tell, like immediately by what she was saying, that this is ultimately targeting Trump, MAGA, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And I knew that this was going to be latched onto by foreign and political adversaries. And that was true. What I didn't see it turning into is kind of dovetailing into the Tucker Carlson, Joe Kent, the Iran war, Epstein files, like all of this, unfortunately, is connected.
Mhm.
And, you know, between that and honestly, some of the things that just Candace has said to try to get me to quit doing things and her bots down there, I was like, all right, this is like my focus right now. And this is what I'm going to focus on. And you're right. It's exhausting. It's tiring. You're under, I see, I've looked at the bots and the people. Some of them are real people. There's no doubt about it. But you know, like there's like literal bots. They're just like, and I posted a bunch of them today. They're just like, you suck. You wouldn't be anything without Candace. You know, it's this demoralization operation that is just obvious to me. There was somebody in the comments earlier. I get this all the time. Like, I used to really like you a lot, and I followed you until you did this. Now I'm going to have to go hang out with Candace, and like. It's just filled like they don't know how to spell my name. It's like the spelling and punctuation is all over
your
the
biggest
place.
fan right there. It doesn't know how to spell your name. Yeah.
I've seen you. I've never seen you in the comments before, but you're my biggest fan. Like you've changed. You know, like the amount of effort that's being put into demoralizing and stopping people like us is like, I'm a pit bull. I was ready. I wanted to quit doing like I thought I was going to talk about the Fort Huachuca thing and then just go on. And then she started coming after me super crazy and mentioned me in just about every episode. And now I don't know if you saw this. I want to share this with you. I had heard about it. I hadn't watched it. I happened to come across it today on accident. But I want everybody to see what she's saying right here about me and Graham Allen real quick.
I believe I correctly put the pieces together of Charlie's assassination very early on. I think that's why they are deploying people and have been steady deploying people full time in an information war against me. That's our Department of War that's behind that. Did you know these people that full time make videos about Candace Owens, like Graham Allen? Did you know what he was doing right before Charlie died? His official title was Senior Consultant to the Department of War. Now he's allegedly moved to Arizona to full-time assist Turning Point USA in their information war regarding Charlie's assassination. The Department of War being the same department which referred to Erica as their emotional assets mysteriously on the night of the White House Correspondents' Dinner shooting. That wasn't the same department which we've discovered paid Paramount Not So Tactical, another full-time trying to delude the masses, a former Green Beret, also now dedicated to the information war, meant to convince everybody without a shred of evidence that Tyler Robinson climbed onto a rooftop and murdered Charlie Kirk in broad daylight because of transgenderism. That here's my perspective. Charlie was killed in a military operation. That part seems very evident to me. The question now is how far are they going to go to continue this failed cover up? I believe I correct.
So, you know, it's why this is not the first time that she's alluded to this, that, you know, I was paid ahead of time to help cover up this conspiracy to kill Charlie Kirk. I never thought that I would find myself in the midst of this, but it's unbelievable because that is very sophisticated what she's sort of kind of doing there. And it's crazy to see the lengths that she will go to smear people. When everything that I put forth on her is just factual based. Like, hey, you said this, you said this, you said this. It's personal now. I'm not going to lie. It's definitely personal now, but it wasn't for a really long time. But, you know, she just doesn't care. And she will attack anybody and smear anybody. And when I see what she's done and Baron Coleman has done, and when there was like a little bit of doubt, like, I don't know, maybe they got something on Erica. It's like, no. Now I see it firsthand. Now I know exactly what you're doing with that. I don't know. It's wild to watch, to say the least.
It really is. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. People always say that about stuff, but this is like really, like, I can't believe that she used to sound intelligent and compelling to me, and I don't even mean that to be mean. It's just so like what she did there with and you do really bother her. She mentions you so much. I mean, and that means you're over the target. That's
I'm over the
something I
target.
learned from Candace Owens. Yeah, if people get upset at you, you're over the target. So, but even what she did with the White House Correspondents' Dinner email, like, she says it as fact that the Department of War referred to her as an emotional asset, Erica, and that has not been established. She showed us, Candace showed us a screenshot of an email, not even an email, a screenshot of what the supposed content was in the email with
A transcript of the email.
Yeah, and now it has, and it is stunning to behold that people just accept that, just like the receipt that you were talking about in the X space last night. That people just the way you said it is good. That she always has unnamed sources, which I understand the importance of that, but then also her evidence cannot be verified by anybody
Unverifiable
else.
information.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's
unverifiable
like
information.
so, but people accept that as fact, that yes, now the Department of War sent out this email about, and it's not it's not been established fact. The only thing that Candace has proven, quote unquote, in all of this is that Charlie sent a text about Israel, and she has
Yeah.
not proven what his mindset was when he sent that. And honestly, I know it's upsetting to some people, and I know you're kind of in the same boat, and maybe your view has shifted a little bit. I'm not motivated by Israel. I don't. That's not what gets me out of the bed in the morning. And I've become more friendly towards I think the Jews in a way that I wasn't before, because of how much anti-Semitism I've seen, and it's directed towards me. And again, I'm sorry that it had to be directed towards me for me to really be like, wow, this is a really evil thing, because they just outright call you Jew and all of that. But I'm not motivated by Israel whatsoever. It's just about what Candace Owens herself is doing, and they're so, see, and even in that little clip, what was it, like 30 seconds? I wrote down like 5 or 6 different things, because there's so much there, and people just like follow along like it's gospel.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, she's interjected so much into this that people now claim as evidence that has never been established. That even like, there were several things where I caught myself like, oh yeah, that's true. Like, where did that come from? Hold on, let me check. Oh, that came from Candace. Well, let me go back to the source of that. Did she provide any? Like, no, but it gets interjected into the zeitgeist, into the conversation, and it just becomes established fact. And there's lots of that. And it's sad because I've watched some of her content. Again, I followed Charlie Kirk for since like 2021. No, it was before that. I don't know, somewhere around there. But very on a regular basis following him. I just, in the conservative media, Candace you always saw her interjected. I watched her interview with Tucker Carlson, where the Macrones were coming after. And I thought the whole thing was funny because I watched Tucker. I didn't really watch her. I thought it was funny. And I was like, yeah, hopefully she does prove that, Brigitte Macron has a penis. Because I hate the French. But now you got me choose. I wasn't a ally of the French, but now I am. Like, you're making me choose the Macrons over you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like,
she had me
you're
believing
full of crap now.
Well, yeah, she had me believing Harvey Weinstein was innocent. And I don't know. Now I'm like, well, I don't know. I always thought he was a bad guy, but like, did he ever commit a crime? I was fully on board with her just at the beginning of last year, that was. And I was like anxiously awaiting her next Harvey Weinstein installment. So she is, talented. But what you said about interjecting stuff in the zeitgeist, like the way you talk about, what is it, that the dogs did not find the weapon? Is that
there's absolutely no evidence that the dogs didn't find the weapon as she claimed. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of evidence against that. All the evidence is against that, but she had an anonymous source providing more unverified information. You see that all over the place.
And that's what legacy media does.
Yeah.
That's how I believe Trump said, very fine people. And I just took it and I didn't look it up, and that's on me. But also, everybody can't, people have lives and jobs, and I understand that, you shouldn't have to be a full-time researcher to figure out what the actual facts are. And she's muddying the water in the same way that legacy media does, and we all hate them for that, even Candace fans. And yet, we blindly accept what Candace is telling us. For what purpose? If we're going to question legacy media and the government, which is all good, why would we not also question what she's saying and the fact that she is intentionally muddying the water by pretending that things are fact and established truth when they're not? And so then we can't even have a conversation because we're now working with two separate sets of facts, and that's exactly what legacy media did to us for the past 10 plus years, probably much longer.
That's exactly why her exact tactics that she uses, her business model, using anonymous sources with unverifiable information, is exactly why so many people left mainstream media, because what they did to Trump, how they were going after Trump. Oh, here's another government source saying this. Like, you don't have anything. There's nothing wrong with having anonymous sources, and there's nothing wrong with necessarily having unverifiable information, but you can't have both. We either know who said it, so that we can say, okay, this person is legitimate and would have that information, and we can hold them accountable, or we have an anonymous source and verifiable information so that we can check that. Once we get into where everything that we put out is a combination of those two things, like, we're no longer dealing in reality. She can say anything,
Right.
and nobody ever holds her accountable. And that's what's so crazy to me, that it can go this extreme and nobody on her side for the most part is waking up. I will say I'm a little bit encouraged by the fact that Evan Kilgore and what is his name, Ariel Morgan, are coming out against her, and for that very reason. Like, Evan's been.
They have me blocked. What are they questioning?
Well, they have a lot going on there, and Evan's been sending me DMs. I'm trying to get him on the show to talk about some of these things, and well, one, Mitch Snow is threatening Ariel Morgan, literally. Let me pull up that post real quick. Let me go to the chat real fast, so I can see exactly what's going on. Let me share this tab instead, and we will go down. All right, so holy shit, Mitch Snow has now just called for somebody to go murder Morgan Ariel. Someone go put this infected bitch in heat down, please. This is now the second call for murder. Real Mitch, I didn't realize his actual name was Fort Banana Snow. That's interesting. But you guys can see right here, this is near literally, we don't know how to spell that, the relationship I have with it's Morgan Ariel. At this point, she is completely incapable of handling rejection. Stalker much? Shocker. Be prepared for her to go claim being a victim because I asked her to go away. Someone go put this HPV, HIV infected bitch in heat down, please. So, this guy, I was trying to warn even Candace, like, this guy is a real problem. And she didn't listen. Even Evan was trying to warn her. I don't know what else Morgan is saying with that, or Ariel, or whatever her first name is. But I think there are some people waking up now. I don't think for a second. I'll just leave it at that. Like, I wouldn't suddenly become friends with Evan. We're not going to align politically. There's a lot of Jew hatred going on with all those things. But even going back to that, it's like, you're right. I was completely indifferent to Jews, Israel. Like, I had some Jewish friends. It never really was a thing. It's like Italian friends. Like, it wasn't something. And then, they've made me extremely aware of what's going on. And what I do believe now, I do believe that this is extremely spiritual. And I do believe, the fact is that Satan hates the Jews. We go back, that was the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that ultimately led to the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. And you better believe that Satan hates them, hates God's chosen people in the same way that he hates Christians. And, when people go around and, like, you can't detach, first of all, like, every person that buys into this complete hogwash just so happens that they're very anti-Semitic as well. And every time that I deal with someone that is anti-Semitic, just their words, the way that they speak, the lies that they spew, like, I haven't found a honest anti-Semite yet. I just haven't. It's just you can't help but notice it's pattern recognition. It's pattern recognition.
Well, yeah, and you posted this as well. Ian Carroll was saying on September 11th that Israel did it. So it's not. You're right that, and Candace already had issues with obviously the Jews and Israel and Netanyahu. In real life, when you're actually investigating something, it doesn't accidentally implicate all of the people you already felt like you had beef with, even if the beef was one-sided. And yet, that's what she's done. Essentially, everyone supposedly implicated in Charlie's murder is people she already did not like. And even if you're not someone who, is decidedly pro-Israel, you can see the derangement that everything comes back to Israel all the time, and that it's not based off of actual evidence. There's no evidence. It doesn't mean, I don't think Candace murdered Charlie. And it doesn't mean that I'm pro Candace. It's just follow the actual evidence. There's no evidence to suggest that Israel did it. And even if Israel wanted somebody gone, which I don't think it would be Charlie, right? He would not be the first one. His entire career, he was a friend to Israel. And whether that was going to change if he had lived, we don't know. We will never know because he didn't live. But we do know that he lived for 48 more hours and didn't actually do anything about that. He didn't actually say, hey, you know what? I am no longer pro-Israel. So he can't have been that convicted. But if Israel wanted somebody gone or our government wanted someone gone, I don't think it would be done in a public manner in the way that it was. I don't think it would be right out in the open and then everybody else would be safe, right? Everybody, including all the awful people. Because even if Charlie turned on Israel, he wasn't going to be nasty about it. He was still going to be Charlie Kirk. And unfortunately, we lost like one of the best among us who wasn't really nasty about anything. So even if he turned on Israel, it was not going to be like this huge threat to Israel. And yet all of these people are out there. Their audiences seem to be growing and they're awful towards Israel. And Israel's going to take out Charlie Kirk and then everyone else is going to be fine, which I'm glad that they're fine. But logically, that does not compute because Israel is willing to do this bold action in front of the whole world and do it to send a message, according to Candace. And now all of a sudden they have stage fright and they're shy and they're not going to do anything to anybody else. It doesn't actually make sense at all. And you don't have to have any kind of feeling on Israel in order to just see the truth of it. My opinion on Candace is my opinion on Candace, totally divorced from any feeling about Israel. And yeah, I have become more sympathetic to them over the course since Charlie's death because of the things that I've seen and because I've been studying the Bible more. But it's still not my number one issue. I'm an American first and foremost. I'm not out here to defend Netanyahu, and yet it's wrong to baselessly accuse him of murder. And she was doing that about a week after Charlie's assassination because I've been watching since that week. And this was not something that was founded, your audience knows that because there's no evidence for it. It was not founded on evidence. It was founded on we're immediately going to go blame Israel because that's what we do with literally everything.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And, it is a shame because Candace does have so much talent. She is good at what she does. I will say, and I'm not even conflicted to even talk about this, but one of the things, you get all the time, I know, and I get all the time is like, you're just jealous because she has so many followers and, or whatever it is. It's, or you can tell she's telling the truth because she has so many followers. And one of the things I hit on last night, I think it's really important. She didn't get all the followers that she has right now because of her current belief. She got all those followers because she believed the exact same thing I do right now and the same thing that you do right now, or at least my perception of what she believed. She believed, and she got so many followers because of what she was pushing, which was essentially the same exact thing as Charlie Kirk, the same thing as Ben Shapiro. That's where she got that following from. And then on top of that, she could be such a positive influence and to just piss it away the way that she is, because I don't care whether Gary exists or Natalie exists, this will fail. And she's going to crash. And I think we're starting to see that. And I think that's a good thing. And hopefully it's going to wake more people up. But, truth is not a democratic process.
No, popularity has nothing to do with that. And
No.
as Christians, we know that, the world that hates you, it hated me first. Being popular is not indicative of the truth, and she is the antithesis of everything Charlie stood for. I mean, she's not even patriotic anymore. She thinks that the country was founded by Freemasons. Charlie, for all of his criticism of things, he loved this country. He obviously conducted himself for the most part like a Christian. I mean, across the board, she's not standing for anything that he stood for. And yet she's doing all of this supposedly in his name. And the views are down. The views are a lot, but they are down from her height. And
Yeah.
I think that that's a bit of hope. I do think she'll always be popular to some degree. She's always going to have like a cult following. I don't think she's going to, become destitute on the side of the road. But I think there are a lot of people who, even if they morally don't see the problem because they're morally stunted and they don't ethically see a problem with what she's doing, a lot of people I think are like, okay, we're 10 months in, you keep saying you're going to produce something, the evidence that France was going to murder you, all of this, there's been no actual evidence of anything. And I think some people at a certain point get bored of it as well. And so at her height of this, she was getting like 3, 4, 5 million views per episode. And so she is down considerably from that.
Well,
and she has a reason to keep milking this for all that it's worth, right? The same way legacy media does. And so it's wrong to ignore that. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. RD Trolls, and if you guys aren't following RD Trolls, I definitely highly recommend him. He's putting out some great stuff. But one of the things he talked about, I think it was last night, was her subscribers. Like, at the height of this, she was getting, like 50,000 new subscribers a month. And now she's way down. And so she's losing some. Yeah, she's still gaining subscribers, but the amount of subscribers that she's getting, and I think there was 1 or 2 months where she got over 1 million new subscribers in a month. So her popularity is waning. And I think not just you and I, but there's a lot of people are waking up. And folks, I say this every episode. This episode, what we do here is a call to action. Like, we need you to go out and fight these things as well. It's not just us out there doing it. Like, we need to start a movement, and that movement is defending the truth. That's really all that matters. I don't care if it's from the left or from the right. I never see it from the left, but if I did see it from the left, I would defend that. But going back a little bit, I kind of want to flesh out something you were talking about. It sounds like you've kind of moved from Catholicism to being more of a Protestant, as I understand what you were saying. Is that fair?
Yeah.
How do you what do you feel like is the difference? And I'm assuming that you do that because you feel like this is more aligned with the Word of God, with the Bible. How did you make that? And like, what's the difference for you?
So honestly, I do have a heart for Catholics. My parents are Catholic still, and I'm so grateful they sent me to Catholic school so I didn't have to deal with public school and all that. And I'm grateful that I at least grew up with some concept of Jesus and biblical stories. But I will say that I did not know the gospel until I stepped outside a Catholic mass. And I know that they say Jesus is there, he's in the Eucharist, all of that. But for me, I think it's beautiful. And that's why I do believe Charlie went to Catholic mass, okay? Because you don't burst into flame if you go into a mass and you're not Catholic, but he was not becoming Catholic. It's a beautiful architecture. It's beautiful. The ritual of it, I love the reverence of it, because sometimes Protestants are like, in their ripped jeans with like, Jesus is my homeboy. And I don't like that. That bothers me a lot. So if they were like, split the difference between the two, that's good for me. But I think sometimes Jesus gets lost in the ritual of it, the recitation, the standing, the sitting, the kneeling. And it wasn't until I walked into actually the late John MacArthur's church, Grace Community Church, who is someone that Charlie was a very big fan of. And he actually passed away 2 months before Charlie's death. And Charlie did a nice little tribute to him. And honestly, John MacArthur was no friend to Catholics. So that's another thing of like, I don't exactly think he was becoming Catholic. But that was the first time I felt as though I experienced Jesus in a service, because it's not like a mega church. It's not like a ripped jeans, strobe lights, whatever else. But just the fact of a sermon centered on Jesus, and there's really nothing else. There's hymns and there's the sermon, but it's not all of the reciting and everything else and getting kind of lost in it. And when I started reading the Bible for myself, I did realize that some of the things that I followed as a Catholic were not in the Bible, like infant baptism and Mary being a perpetual virgin or sinless, things like that. Priests being celibate. And I think at the end of the day, we can all be saved. You know, I think if you have a genuine faith in Jesus and you repent and obey, I don't think necessarily the Catholic Church is stopping you from that. But I know some people would disagree with me. I've been studying the Bible with Patrick O'Brien from Bible in Context, from Philippians 1:9 Ministries, and he's really helped me. It's a Bible college, but it's not accredited, but it's extensive, thousands of hours of biblical study, and he is very ardent, you know, against Catholics. And it's hard for me to wage into this. Not that I mind it, because I don't want to offend anybody. And I do ultimately think, you know, Catholics can be saved. But I've encountered a lot of Catholics who they don't seem to know the Bible, and they do seem to put so much emphasis on your works, right? And I think it's already finished at the cross. And if I have to do something in order to gain it, then why would I thank Jesus? It's like only partially Jesus, but it's also me being a really good person. And I'm actually like a really bad person, you know? And so that's just my own kind of, I still have Mother Mary on my wall, actually, because I still have like, I was confirmed in the Catholic Church. I still have all this paraphernalia, but that's been my experience. Yeah.
Some people would call those idols. I'm just saying.
I know.
I'm just
Yes.
Look, you know, I'm Protestant, non-denominational. I grew up like hardcore United Pentecostal church. Like, you know, I went to a church where, you know, my mother never cut her hair, never wore makeup.
Wow.
You know, there was speaking in tongues and shouting services just about every Sunday. No TV, nothing like that. So, you know, the one thing that I will say that has always turned me off a little bit when it comes to the Catholic Church. And folks, if you're Catholic, God bless you. Just like Natalie said, even you can be saved. I'm just joking. I thought that was funny. I thought that was funny the way you said it.
Is that how I said it? Oh, good grief. Yeah,
we love you, Catholics. Yeah, we have Breed Dale on here all the time. So everybody just chill out and have fun. With that being said, you know, I don't like the idea of there's this priest in between me and Christ. And I do think that there's some ritualistic holdovers, whether we're talking about, you know, from Judaism, or even we get into, you know, Roman, I don't know, like freaking all the different gods and different things that they had. So like, I see that crossover, and I can see how that got merged into the church, but I don't think that's what we see in the early church. And that's just my take on the Bible. And, you know, I like the idea of what I believe the Bible to say, that we need a personal relationship between us and Christ. It's great to have a pastor. It's great to have a leader, but like, I don't need to go to them to confess my sins. That's between me and my Savior. And I do think that's really important. And I can understand coming from Catholicism over to being a Protestant, where, I don't know, that just makes sense to me. And if you're Catholic, feel free to opine down in the comments. I will definitely try to get to some of those as well. We love Catholics. We love all Christians.
We do.
We're all on the same team. We're all trying to figure it out. And we're all trying to make sure that we do our best to do exactly what the Bible says. And I think it's always good to do some self-reflection. Again, I'm not Pentecostal now. I'm non-denominational. And I agree with you. There was elements of that. Like, I don't believe that you have to speak in tongues to be saved. I think that's a little different. I don't think that, you know, you're going to hell if you're a man and you wear shorts. I don't, you know, or watch TV or some of these other things. I do think that we need to separate ourselves from the world. I think that element of it is important, but the way that we act, the way that we live our lives, not necessarily, you know, a woman's not going to hell if she wears makeup and earrings and run around like a Jezebel, as I'd always hear.
Well, and I know Catholics are having like a resurgence right now, and I think that's great. Anecdotally, that's not what I experience. So I still go to Mass sometimes, and the priest will be in a mask sometimes in the Mass. Everyone else is in a mask, and they're not singing. And so that might be a regional thing. And, you know, I told you my experience with COVID. So I don't see it here. It's not like a zest for Jesus where people are participating, but it seems to be that a lot of people are being called, especially younger people, being called to Catholicism. So, you know, maybe other people, I'm open to them having different experiences of it. Ultimately, Jesus is what matters.
You know, however you get to the cross, you know, that's how I see it. Like, however you get to the cross, And then, it's on you. It's on you to read the Bible and figure out what you believe is right, and not have that information delivered to you. And, because you end up with someone like Candace leading you astray. I just want to go through some super chats real quick, and then we're going to bring on Outspoken Samantha as well. But Papa Jamo, thank you for becoming a member. And again, folks, if you haven't done so already, make sure you like, subscribe, go follow Natalie. All of her information is down in the comments, as well as comments on the description, as well as Outspoken Sam as well. So make sure you guys do that. All right, Gary, I just want to say how much I appreciate you for keeping it 100%. Thank you for standing up for a widow. That is the other thing too. Like, there's a part of me as a man that I've just I feel compelled to stand up for Erica and seeing her. And it's not because I have a crush on Erica or any nonsense like that. I would hope that somebody would do that if I was gone for my wife. That's the way that I see that, because it's disgusting what they're doing to her. Colton says, I always say hello to Gary, but when I'm late, but I've also been watching Natalie for months now. So hello to both of you. Thank you very much, Colton. I'm so glad to see Gary talking with Natalie. Greatly appreciate both of them. So tired of Candace's lies.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love hearing all these wonderful past liberal people come out and tell their stories. Gives me hope for the future. Does me too. It's very encouraging. If Natalie can get out of the cult, anyone can.
It's true. It's never too late.
It's the same one that was just there. It's really easy, Gary. So many people are just working and consume tiny bits at a time. Those people also work in low-end jobs, and they also start believing they're the victims of a rich person. Yeah, that's true. And I think not even just low-end jobs. There's just lots of people out there that consume bits and pieces of media. And I'll have people show up in the comments all the time. It's like, hey, Gary, I'm just paying attention to this and I'm watching you, and this is what I heard. And I just heard this the other day, and it was like something that's been disproven months and months ago. So people, and that's what we're doing. We're not trying to convert Candace Owens people. I mean, I hope they do. I have hope for them. But at the same time, that's not my intent. My intent is to make sure that this doesn't grow bigger. And I also want people that are still logical and reasonable to realize what is happening, because I think the vast majority of people, when they see what is going on, they're shocked by it. And I see that all the time. And that's the intent.
She is good at speaking to that dissatisfaction, though, like giving somebody a scapegoat, even though she herself is inordinately wealthy. Just that people feel dissatisfied about a lot of things and they want somebody to blame. And I get it. People can't afford a home, all of that. And it's nice to pin it on some shadowy elite. I also think it's comforting in a weird way, to believe that Charlie, a giant like Charlie, can't be taken out by a 22-year-old liberal, trans, whatever loving thing. That's a scary thought, that just in a moment that can happen. And it's almost more comforting to believe that there's these shadowy people to blame for Charlie, and also for the fact that I'm paycheck to paycheck and everything else.
Yeah, it's very convenient. And you're right. It is like a lot of people are just in denial. Like, that couldn't happen. It was just too hard for that to be pulled off. It had to be something more complex, something more complicated, something more planned, another larger sinister force behind it. And that's just not true. And I'm telling you, folks, if you really care about this, just go to UVU. I think once you go there, that was the thing for me. I didn't know what was going on. I knew exactly what was taking place once I was there. Once I saw that you could walk up on that roof, and I saw that, everything just came together for me, and all doubt in my mind of whether or not we were being told the truth was gone for me. It really was. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Something else I was going to say on that regard, but I lost it. Do some overtime shift at an Amazon warehouse to make extra money. You will immediately meet people thinking they deserve more than they're owed. That's true. I know what I was going to say. All of her tactics are leftist tactics. Everything that she does to convince people of these things are the exact same thing that we've been seeing from the left for years and years and years, and including, the politics of envy, jealousy, and greed. Like, that is we're always creating this monster out there that is trying to hold you down. And that's what that's in the communist playbook. That's what they do. That's what the left does. And we see that, and we see exactly what she's doing with every time that she's on her show. That's
right.
And what I also love is that she acts like she is just the normal people out there. it doesn't get more bourgeois than her. I mean, it doesn't. And then she's like, oh, look at all these rich Epstein class. Like, chick, I just
Right.
saw John Mappin in your comments. He's Epstein class. What are you talking about?
Right. Yeah. Her husband is like the son of a British lord, right? Is worth is a couple million at least. I remember one time she said Erica doesn't touch her own doorknobs, which I think is a little outrageous. I don't know. I'm not a millionaire, but I think she touches her own doorknobs. But Candace is wealthier than Erica Kirk is, if we're going by that tier. And she does not live the same life as. But she started repeating outfits, so maybe she is the every woman. You know, I've noticed.
I wouldn't
I've
even
noticed
notice that.
repeat outfits. Well, they're
There-
very expensive outfit. I like Natalie Denise online. She will post
Mhm.
how much the outfit was, or Britta will. And it's always like, you know, a cool $1,000 for a blouse or whatever.
Must be nice. Must be nice.
Yeah.
All right. I want to welcome to the show Outspoken Samantha. Outspoken Samantha, thank you for coming.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I've
You're
just been listening to your guys' conversation.
We've been all over the place. Not
That's okay. That's
not
the story of my
Natalie's
life.
fault. It's all mine. But number one, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you coming on. I've been
Of
following
course.
you for a while too. And if you will, just take a moment and just kind of introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, obviously Outspoken Samantha. A little bit of my background, I ran for office in Colorado, which is where I am now, back in 2020 during COVID. So that was an interesting experience, and that kind of launched me into just talking more about politics. I ran in Denver, so obviously I didn't expect to win. I tried, I did my best. But ever since then, I've just been more active on social media and just trying to talk about things that are important. And it always surprises me how many people say, you know, I wish I could speak out like you, or say things that you say online, but I'm too afraid. And that doesn't compute with me. I've been speaking my mind since I was probably born. So I'm happy to say the things that some people are too afraid to say, and hopefully encourage people to say more.
Yeah, no, and that was one of the things that we were just talking about too. I think it's really important that, you know, people don't just sit around and wait for someone else to do something.
Mhm.
You know, I think our jobs that are on social media is to empower to people to action. And I love that about both of you. You know, what are some things that people can do to like get over, I don't know, the fear of whatever it is? And I actually, I know what it is. A lot of people are afraid that people are going to say mean things. And I get it. I'm not downplaying this because it's a big deal for a lot of people. Like, what are some things that people can do to like start getting involved? Because there's some people out there right now, and folks, this is your calling. You're supposed to be talking. And what that looks like could be TikTok, could be, I don't know, typing things out on X, could be videos, could be YouTube, whatever it is. If you're listening to this, chances are you have a calling to do something, and you're going to reach people that only you can reach. Like, what's your advice to them, Samantha?
I think the main thing is to not be afraid what people are going to say about you or what they're going to think about you, because we have this very loud faction of, particularly on the left, that are going to hate you no matter what you do. If you stay silent, they're not going to like you. If you speak up, they're not going to like you. So it really doesn't matter. If you have an opinion about something, I think you need to speak up, because the left, they're not afraid to say what they think. And they say the craziest, most insane things that, you know, I don't even think any of us could have fathomed a couple of years ago that people would actually think was normal, yet here we are. So if they can get out there and say the most insane things, why can't you offer, you know, a more balanced, meaningful perspective? And that's what we need more of, because we have to counteract that. And I think, you know, people need to really look into the issues and even just pick one or two things that you are really interested in, because I know it can be extremely overwhelming, and just kind of learn about one thing at a time, and just, you know, just talk, just say what you think, but you don't have to be aggressive or confrontational about it. But you have a balanced opinion, and we need that more than ever. But don't care what people think, because they're not going to like you no matter what.
I couldn't agree more. Like, Natalie, what do you think because that is true. It's like the left or the Candace cult, and I don't even know where to put them anymore. They're kind of one and the same. They got no shame. Like they'll throw on a camera and start talking to it and just say utter gibberish and stupid things, and they are not self-conscious. And here we are. We have truth. We have God on our side. We have evidence on our side, and we're like, oh my God, is the lighting perfect? Am I going to say this right? Like I'm wringing my hand. Like is I don't know. Girls are like, is my makeup perfect? Like. Why do you think like they're so energized and like we need to be? Like, what's the difference?
Well, I think when you're making it up as you go along, you get you don't have to fact check anything because you're writing fan fiction. It helps. Well, listen, I film from my car usually, so I guess I don't have that problem of perfection. But thank you. You know, LA. But Viva Frey, who's been going hard against Candace recently, I remember one time he told me, just start, just start and do it and post it. And obviously, I think pray about it first, make sure that you have your facts straight, but it doesn't have to be perfect. And you don't know who you're impacting, right? Like Samantha's point. I mean, when I started speaking up during COVID, it was so helpful to know I wasn't alone. And during this Candace thing, like it's helpful to know that I'm not the crazy person, that there are a bunch of other people. And so we're not doing this for fame, right? Like we're not doing this for tons of followers. But you build this community in a way that is harder to do offline sometimes with the way our world is set up right now. And you don't know who you're impacting by speaking that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Samantha, what was it like that motivated you to get involved specifically?
I think just feeling like the left was getting louder and we weren't being heard and we weren't speaking up. And I think a lot of times, particularly those loud voices, they use our niceness against us, maybe for lack of a better word, that it's like they always expect us to be the better person and to keep the temperature down while they're going insane. And I just I didn't like that. I didn't like feeling like we were being drowned out, especially living in a blue state and just realizing, especially in running for office, that we really weren't being listened to. And I don't know. I just didn't like that feeling. So I just decided to be that person to get out in front of it and hopefully set an example for other people. And I do think it has helped in a lot of ways just to know that, a mom of 3 kids that just works and just living this everyday life can have an impact even in the smallest way. So, people always think that the people with the biggest platforms are the ones that should be talking or should be leading the movement, when really they need examples from their community and from their friends and from their neighbors and people that are just like them, and just doing normal everyday things and fitting that into the chaos of everyday life.
No, I agree. And I'm curious, Natalie, you live in California, and Sam, you live there in Colorado. And I was just having this conversation with my wife the other day because Colorado is about to enact some pretty severe gun laws. We have a lot of clients that are trying to buy guns and get them there before August 1st when this goes into effect. We continue to see these crazy policies in these Democrat, and unfortunately, Colorado is definitely all blue now and becoming more. In Virginia, I'm like 20 minutes for Virginia and like 30 minutes from Maryland. And so we're right here in West Virginia, like right here, the sliver of God's country in between these two Democrat bastions. I was telling my wife, like, I don't understand why conservatives don't just move. And clearly you're both still in there fighting. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you guys deal with that? Is there a point to where you're, like, I'm just going to have to move to Texas or Tennessee or Florida, because I don't see any other way to like punish these lawmakers that are destroying these states?
I don't know if Natalie or myself, we actually did move to Texas. We were there for 4 years. We moved in 2021 and we were never planning on moving back to Colorado, but life happened and we ended up back here just a year ago. And what I will say is that, yes, it was nice to be in Texas. I felt like there were more like-minded people in my community. I feel like even these red states are even a bigger target because there is so much pushback. You know, it's easy for these woke ideologies and all of these things to get into a blue state, but they're really hitting hard with these red states and these, you know, deeply red areas. And obviously it's a bigger fight. But it's going to hit you anywhere, no matter where you are. So you always need to be prepared. Even if you are in a blue state, what you're doing still matters. If you're in a red state, what you're doing still matters. We're not just fighting for our states right now. We're fighting for our entire country.
Oh.
And you know, we're seeing the spread of these socialists and these communists. These are not Democrats anymore. These are communists, and they're coming for the whole country.
Yeah.
They're not coming just for Colorado or California. So it really, moving is a temporary solution, but it really is going everywhere. And I don't mean that to sound dark, but you just kind of have to realize that. And I think being rooted in reality helps you understand how to address it.
No, I couldn't agree more. We scared Natalie off. She was like, I'm getting out of California.
I gotta go
like,
now.
That's a good idea. I'm leaving now. I'm leaving right now. How do you deal with it, Natalie?
Well, I mean, I admire you, Samantha, for running for office, because I feel like that's the big thing, you know, like so many people want to talk online, and I think that's great, but actually running for something seems to be that's a step that scares me. But I think like there's an argument to be made for not ceding the most beautiful states in the country to radical leftists. I think Texas obviously has a scary Senate race with James Tallarico and possibly flipping blue. So I think so goes California, so goes the nation, right? And maybe Colorado as well. Like, you're not safe wherever you go. Luckily, I'm poor, so you know it takes money. It takes money. I'll probably save money in the long run if I go, but it takes money to get out. And so, also my whole family's here, so that's, you know, I love them. But yeah, I mean,
I was just
Go
gonna say,
ahead.
I'm not gonna lie. For a long time, I was like, I think Natalie lives in her car. That's where people go.
Thank you. Yes, I've gotten that accusation. Yes, I'm grifting. I make about 7,000 from Israel, but I'm stocking it away, and I'm living in my car. Yeah.
I do love that is where most of your content comes from. You're just like, it's real, it's legit, and I genuinely like that. But I did think that you lived in the car, but that's okay. So, you know, Sam, what are you guys seeing in Colorado? Because you brought up a great point, and I think this is super important for most Republicans, conservatives, however you self-identify as. I've been saying for a long time, like, there is no difference in my mind, and I mean this literally, between the actual DNC and the CCP. I think the CCP has their claws deep in the DNC, and I do think that the goal here is a slow, transfer of power from the United States. I think these people are politically aligned. We see what's going on with birthright citizenship and how the Chinese are taking advantage of that. Many other countries as well. But look, I think the greatest threat to this nation is China.
Mm-hmm.
You can
Sorry,
react.
what was the question? Oh.
You can react to that. Like, you kind of mentioned that.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, living in Colorado, it's pretty much the same as California. I know that our governor, Jared Polis, put out a post the other day about condemning communism and not wanting to follow that path, but he's done everything that every other blue state has done. So as we know, a lot of the times these Democrats or these communists will say, no, we don't want to do that, or they'll try to soften what's actually happening so we're not paying attention. But we know that that's not actually true. I mean, we're definitely the most radical state when it comes to a lot of things, when it comes to immigration, when it comes to sanctuary city laws, when it comes to abortion, one of the few handful of states that has absolutely zero limits on abortion whatsoever. So it's really difficult to see. And I just found out that the school district that my family lives in is probably one of the most woke radical districts in the country. and it has 70 males that are competing against females in this district. So we've been back here for about a year. We will be homeschooling our children this year because I just don't want to deal with it. But we're seeing the same things here as you're seeing. If you see it in California, you see it in Michigan, you see it in New York, it's happening here as well. They're trying to pretend that it's not. So it's definitely concerning. But to the point, that I was making before about whether or not you live in Colorado or you live in Texas, you can find these pockets of community that are like-minded. And I've found a lot of people that are still very traditional, that love America, that, want these values. And so, I think my advice to people is don't get discouraged by what you hear online, because there's still so many people, Natalie lives in California, I live here, and there's so many like-minded people around you that are still fighting for the same things, that don't want this garbage in our schools, that want to have restrictions on some of these crazy ideas. And there's a lot of people that are still trying to protect this country, but we have to be more aggressive about it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think conservatives for too long got into this mindset that, we're just going to sit back. We're going to, take care of our families. We're going to pay attention to what we're doing. And then we're going to go vote when we need to go vote. We were very hands off. And I still see that online, right? Again, whether it's the left, they're out there they understand social media. They understand communications. They understand how to manipulate messaging on social media. And I think conservatives are just so far behind on that. And the other part of it, for whatever reason, we're very timid to fight online for the most part. Just the everyday regular people, whereas I think more of the everyday regular liberals are down there in the comments. They're pushing, they're boosting stuff, they're retweeting, they're fighting nonstop. They're creating their own platforms at a much higher rate than anything that I see happening on the right. And I think we need to understand that this is the forefront. This is the battlefield that we got to fight on. And a lot of conservatives aren't comfortable with that, but you don't get to determine where the fight is. This is the fight. And I think people need to pay attention to that. What do you guys think, like in Colorado or in California, Natalie, you all are both telling me like, hey, we need to fight this and stay here and fight for California or Colorado. What do you think is the strategy for that?
To be like completely frank, I know my internet got cut off there. I don't know that I'm married to like staying here. There's a part of me that does not want to be on the front lines, honestly. And I think there is sometimes there's a stronger community in these blue states. Like LA County has more registered Republicans than any other county in the nation, but it's also a huge county. And so obviously we're overwhelmed. Sometimes you have like a more tight-knit community in these really blue areas because we're all kind of in it together. But if we can't like pass the SAVE Act, if like in LA, California, it takes 3 weeks to get the results and we don't have voter ID, and like we don't know who's voting, and I get a mail-in ballot for somebody else and my mail-in ballot goes to another place where I used to live, which has all happened. I actually don't know how you solve it, to be honest, because I don't want to foster distrust in elections. But I don't know how you totally trust elections with the way that like California runs their elections. So if we can't overhaul this on a national level, I don't actually know how you fix it.
Sam, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, and I agree with Natalie. I mean, it seems like almost insurmountable sometimes, especially if we don't have these secure elections. And, with what the president was saying the other day, if people took from that speech that, this is about him throwing a tantrum about the 2020 election, that was not the point at all. No. It's just exposing how vulnerable our elections truly are. And it shouldn't be a partisan issue about making sure that our machines can't be hacked and making sure that, only citizens are voting. And it's really hard to overcome that, especially when you have such a large faction of the country that seems to think that this is a partisan issue and they don't want to have their machines, secured. They don't want to make sure that only citizens are voting. So that is going to be a huge thing. If we don't have that, I don't know what we do going forward. I think that people need to not give up and get involved locally. Yeah. My biggest thing right now, just as a mom, is just making sure that my kids have the right ideology, that they are secure, because they're going to be the fighters going forward. They're the ones that are going to probably inform their friends about accurate history and accurate American values. And a lot of that is going to come from us individually, to our kids, to our friends, and just in our communities of people. We've got to keep, not to sound all like inspirational, but we've got to keep the American dream alive and what we stand for, and not let that die regardless of what's going on in Washington. So there's always something to fight for, I guess, is my takeaway, or my, advice to people. There's always something worth fighting for.
No, I agree. I mean, we live in the greatest country on earth, and I think that more people need to realize that. And I do think that the antidote to most of this is patriotism, right?
Mhm.
Like, this is where like the doomers and the liberals, they kind of win, is like they start convincing people that our government's irredeemable, this country's irredeemable, and making sure that our kids are indoctrinated. And I believe that, like, if you're not indoctrinating your kids, folks, somebody else is. And while it's great that we can, like, hey, you know what, we need to make the school systems better, that to me is still, and I'm guilty of this, we're still outsourcing our indoctrination of our kids to somebody else. And we have to make sure that, just like Samantha says, one of my kids is homeschooled, the other one is still we live in West Virginia, it's very rural. They're actually pretty good schools, and they're pretty conservative. But even the high school that my 16-year-old was going to is like, no, he was there for a day and we pulled him out. Some weird things happened. And I was like, no, we're homeschooling you. But, we need to take responsibility for our kids and what our kids know and what they don't know, especially when it comes to our principles and our values. Like, that just isn't taught in homes anymore at all. And it's so important. It is what is going to ensure the future of this country. And I am concerned, even going back to, our conversation earlier, Natalie, this is what I see with all of this taking place with Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Joe Kent, all these people. They're going to ensure that we lose the midterms, and they're basically going to ensure that we lose 2028. And if that happens, I'm really concerned. And I don't like to be negative, but I got to be honest with you. The Democrats are telling us, hey, look, we're going to pack the Supreme Court. We are going to make sure, and you know what's going to happen if a Democrat is in the White House. They're going to flood this nation with illegal immigrants. And if they have the House and the Senate, they're going to push forward legislation that has a pathway to citizenship. And between owning the legislative branch, making sure that they pack the Supreme Court, and they have the judiciary, like, I don't know how we dig ourselves out of that hole. What do you think, Natalie? I keep not giving you questions, and I just leave it hanging.
No, well, I don't have, I am a little bit dystopian on this. I'm concerned about that. I do feel like the midterms are upon us, and we've sort of already like seeded them in a way. And going back to our earlier conversation, that's part of why I don't know how much to focus on this, because at the end of the day, like, it's not going to win us the midterms. It matters so much, because I think it's awful what's happening to Charlie's legacy and his widow and all of that. But there's also so many other things going on. And it feels like the worst time to be in politics since I got involved. And I know I'm relatively new to it, but it just feels like very broken, and like we're all fighting each other. And maybe this is something that like needs to happen. I don't know, but it feels very fractured. It feels like people are turning on Trump, and I don't know how to fix it. It almost feels like the midterms are already lost. And I like hate to say that. And then we're all just fighting with each other online. And I don't know. Maybe Samantha has better words of wisdom than I do, because it does feel pretty heavy right now.
It does.
Yeah. I don't know if I have any, you guys, I'm going to get so much hate for this. I'm going to get so much hate for this, but you know what? Just repeal the 19th. Just take the vote away from women. You know what? I hate saying that. I'm only like, when I say that, I'm only kind of kidding, but I understand that there are so many women that are on the left and that are sinking the country, and their emotional outrage is just taking us down. And it is not something that I ever anticipated, 20 years ago, that it would be women that are the downfall of this country. But I am so tired of not being able to have rational conversations about the things that matter, about trying to actually solve problems, when the first thing that matters is how you feel. And so I've had this thought many times. I'm like, you know what? I would give up my right to vote if it meant liberal women couldn't vote. So
I don't let my wife vote ever. No, just
yeah, yeah, you're already there. You're like, it's not a problem in our household, you know.
there is no 19th Amendment in this house.
I'm just saying, and I know that a lot of other conservative women have said that, and I know that women on the left are going to take that as you're trying to take away our right to vote, you're trying to take away our rights, and it's like, no, we're just trying to get back to a logical, reasonable way of thinking so that, you know, everybody can have different positions, but we can have a rational conversation. I'm so tired of trying to battle with people's emotions about these issues. And maybe I'll get kicked off the show for saying that, but
No, not at all.
that's how I feel.
Yeah, you know, I think there's a lot of truth in that. And I think that message actually resonates with a lot of people. And it's not like a misogynistic, patriarchal. I don't agree with everything that Andrew Wilson says or Rachel Wilson says, but I'll tell you what, they make some pretty compelling arguments with that. And really, even Jordan Peterson used to talk a little bit about this. He'd kind of dip his toe in that arena a little bit. But there is a problem, whether it's men or women. Like when you start making all your decisions based on emotion, and it's just a fact, and it's a blessing from God that women are more emotional and they think more emotionally, and it's perfect for the home. It's exactly what we need in the home. It's exactly what our kids need when they have, you know, an alpha type male in the house. That we need that balance. And that's why God, and that's the other thing that really does disgust me about the left is like they have made it to where the number one thing that women should be looking for is this career so that they can go work for other men, I guess, as opposed to the one thing that the greatest thing that they can do, and that is their children. They can give birth to children. They can create the next generation. They can pour into their kids. You know, the idea, luckily, for up till 2023, my wife was a stay-at-home mom. She was able to be home with my kids all the time. That was something that we agreed on, you know, from the get-go. That was really a great blessing. And it wasn't always the best financially, but we made it work. And I can tell you, my kids are better for it, especially when I was in the military and I was gone all the time and things like that. But to sit here and say, like, the best thing that a woman can do is go out and work for other people is just nuts to me when they're built for so much more and they're such an important part of society and we don't treasure and honor that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I completely agree. And I mean, I didn't mean to steer the
I think it's
conversation
a
that
great
direction, but I mean, I was always somebody that I wasn't sure I wanted to have kids because I never liked babysitting. I never liked other people's kids. I still really don't like other people's kids. And I was like, what if I don't like my own kids? You know, this idea that women are just naturally inherently born with this, like they're going to be attached to their kids and it's going to be so natural. That wasn't me. But I was working full time when I had my first son, and about 6 months in, I was like, I need to stay home with him. We need to figure out a way to make it work. And I was home up until, I mean, I've done jobs on and off over the last 15 years, but I really went back to work full time this year. And I would not trade that for anything. You know, it's just the most amazing thing. I've done a lot of other things. I've always had a lot of other interests, but being home with my kids, and I know that it's been extremely beneficial for them as well. And we've struggled financially, but I would not trade it for anything. And it makes me really sad to see so many women that have this idea that's been pushed into their head that they have to be more like a man. They have to want, you know, that career, that, you know, that 9 to 5, that moving up the corporate ladder and whatnot, that's going to be more fulfilling. And I'm never saying that women shouldn't work. I absolutely believe that women should pursue the things that they're good at and that they love and that they're interested in. But that's not a replacement for being a parent.
It's definitely to sit here and say that, you know, this corporate position is the pinnacle of success is the most materialistic, ungodly thing, un-American thing that we could actually say, in my opinion. I mean, it's just saying that, you know, money is what is important and defines success. And, you know, as a reformed feminist, Natalie, what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, well, there's so much, right? It does feel like a lot of people would balk at repealing the 19th. Even a lot of conservatives would balk at it. But I do think there's something to be said for going back towards, you know, one family, one vote. But then you have the issue of there's a lot of people are staying not married for much longer, and people, you know, don't have families and that kind of thing. And it feels like multiple generations of women and also men, because we've all been touched by feminism to some degree, were sold kind of like a false bill of goods. And so once you get off on that wrong track, like how do you course correct? Because so much damage has been done that it's kind of like, well, let's just like lean into the damage. And it sounds trite, but none of this, that's why God is so important, because I feel like we are in a little bit of a mess. You know, it's easy, not that you guys are saying this, but to say like, oh, we'll get married and have children and it'll all work out. But I see so many people who are really like struggling with that, who would love to get married and haven't met the right person for whatever reason. People who, you know, are just like struggling to get back on the right path. And I feel like as a society, we're kind of struggling to get back on the right path. And it feels so backwards right now that it can't be fixed other than the individual turning back to God, you know, because it is hard. Like it's all, I don't know. I feel like I'm not offering anything of value here, but
No, you are.
it does feel pretty messed up, you know? And I don't know how you fix it, because even conservatives would be against a lot of the stuff that we're saying. And so I don't know. I feel like we've lost the plot a lot, and that's because we've turned away from God.
Well, you know, I do think like one of the elements that ends up getting interjected into this, and I'm probably going to step on some people's toes too, is like this idea that even within a marriage, like men and women are equal when it comes to the authority over the home. And that is just not biblical. Now, we are absolutely equal in our own differences, right? I mean, absolutely, like no man should just rule over his wife or anything crazy like that. But at the same time, I think one of the biggest problems and why we see such a high divorce rate is like we have two chiefs running the village, and there's always going to be conflict, and there's almost never this deferment to one person who should be leading the household. And of course, this bleeds over into society as well. But I mean, that is biblical. People don't like it. That being said, again, we are equal, but we're very different. Like we are all, men and women are very special. We all have our own, you know, gifts, talents, abilities, and they're not the same. They're just not. Like, I don't think that a police force is better with women on it. I don't think that the military, as far as the actual combat arms, are better for it. It's just not. And I think that's very demonstrable. And that's like people right now are really pissed off, and you're all in your feelings because you've been infected with feminism right now. But just demonstrably, that is false. And I can tell you, like what I saw happening to the United States military and especially special operations, where they lowered standards so that women can go on there, it is just going to cause problems. And it doesn't make us a more lethal force, and it doesn't police force. Like, you know, could you imagine like a police force with all women? If we didn't have any men, like all the criminals would just run over people all the time and like get out of here. And you could it just doesn't fit, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, women and men are not equal. I think we're equal in value, but we're complementary. We complement each other. And I think, again, you know, going back to the Bible, since Eden, women have been
causing all kinds of problems.
Well, we have passive men, right? Passive men who allow women to do these things, and then women wanting to play God, you know, and we see that over and over and over again. Women desiring things that we feel that we should have, that we don't have, kind of goes back to Eden. But yeah, once you get all of these rights and you conquer all of this territory, it is hard to cede that. It's hard to rationalize, well, giving some of that up. That sounds like going backwards. It sounds like regressive. But again, that's why it all comes back to God, you know, unless you understand these concepts biblically, or at least meditate on it. Probably don't ever understand it, and really try to understand scripture. It like Christless conservatism doesn't make sense, right? It just seems like, oh, well, let's just give up territories we've already conquered. And why would we do that? And that's why, I don't know. It's, I wish I had something better to say. It does really feel like a mess. And listen, I'm part of it as well. I don't have a family. I'm not a parent, all of that. But I see so many people who seem like they would be good partners. I know so many people, men and women both, who want that and go to church, all of that. And for whatever reason, like struggle to find it. And it seems like it's a multi-layered issue.
I don't really think that's an issue. I think that, look, I was divorced once. I got married way too young, and then, you know, got divorced, and, you know, and I don't, you know, I was not in church. And I don't believe in divorce. With that being said, you know, I have a great wife now, and she's amazing, but it took me, it takes some discernment to get there. And I do think that too many people rush into it. There's some people that wait too long, and they're waiting for the absolute perfect person, which is never going to arrive. But then there's those people that do rush into it. And I was that guy that wanted a family, that confused, I don't know, you know, the desires of the flesh for love. You know, that's one of the things we do when we're young. But it is tough, and I think we should be selective in who we choose, and, you know, just not meet them on Tinder. Like, you know, what's your thoughts on that, Samantha?
Well, definitely don't meet them on Tinder. I have this habit of, like, there's a park across the street from me, and I walk around it for about an hour every day, and I listen to Tinder horror stories. Don't meet anybody on Tinder. Just don't do it. It's awful.
Is that a thing? Is that a real thing? Tinder horror stories?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad, guys. People are not making good decisions. So there's so much to unpack there. I do agree with Natalie that, you know, when I say repeal the 19th Amendment, you know, going back to that, I say it, I understand realistically that's not going to happen. Be an automatic fix. Like, we just cut women's right to vote off and suddenly everything is fixed. There's a lot of ideology, a lot of deep-rooted beliefs and perspectives that have been put into both men's and women's heads for years and years and years. And so just, you know, a quick, I don't know, move like that wouldn't solve the problem. We are in a really big mess. I also agree that I think it is becoming harder to find a good partner in life. I mean, I have friends that, you know, I know that they would be really good partners to, you know, a husband or a wife, and it just hasn't happened. I don't know if it's, you know, people are just busy, or it's just harder to connect with people these days. I'm not sure. I don't know what the answer is to all that, but I completely agree that putting God back into focus, you know, I think we've seen the effects of removing God from society, of, you know, taking him, you know, pretending it's not one nation under God, or attacking everything that is biblical, like the family, you know, the parent-child relationship, the husband and wife relationship. We know that the reason these things are under attack is because they do build the strongest societies. When you have those biblical values, when you have the 10 commandments, when you have, you know, a society that is focused on building strong families or facilitating that, making it possible for that to happen, that's when you have the most success. And so we understand, at least, you know, I understand that that's why those things are under attack. And I always find it interesting when people say, you know, we shouldn't have, you know, they're so offended by things like the 10 Commandments. And maybe I'm going off on a tangent here, but just talking about biblical values reminded me of this thought. But I find it interesting when people say, you know, we don't need the 10 Commandments. Not everybody believes in that. And it's really easy to say that when you have grown up in a country where those are your values, because not every country believes, you know, thou shalt not murder. Like, obviously that's that's not a principle in some countries, or thou shalt not steal, or all of these other things. Like, these are our foundation, and this is why we are so blessed. So it's really easy to say that we don't need that when you've grown up in a place where that's been the foundation of the country that you live in, and you have been so blessed because of it. So obviously, you know, we need to get back to focusing on God and our God-given rights, and putting that at the forefront of everything. And that would be ultimately the biggest fix, apart from legislation and the SAVE Act. It's putting God back into focus.
Yeah, and I think even when you say, you know, we should probably repeal the 19th Amendment, to some degree, there's that's like a mechanism to attempt to force people back to like a biblical principles, right? That men lead the household, men are the leaders of society. And again, I'm not saying that that's always the case. And if you're female and you feel the need to lead, please lead. But what I'm saying is it is like we have gone so far away from biblical principles in this country where, you know, women feel this desire to have these masculine roles, and we see more men like just turning into females, like they are this feminized version of men. And I find it so disgusting. And luckily my wife does too. And I think most women do to some degree, because even when you find these women that are in these relationships with these beta feminized men, like they just dominate over them. It's and I know it's not always the case, but that is not a good thing. Like, we need men in this society because we need men to fight wars, to lay bricks, to freaking get bad guys. Like, I don't know what the issue with this is. And part of that,
I think you just need to make him a sandwich. Those are wise words. Wise words from a wise woman, and that's how you solve it. Make him a sandwich.
Well, let's do this. Let's pivot a little bit. What do you guys think is going to happen with 2028? I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts on JD Vance, and who do you think would be the best nominee for 2028?
I personally think Marco Rubio. I would prefer to see him. I really like JD Vance, but I'm getting a little bit more concerned about him.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't really pinpoint anything. It just seems like he's kind of slowly sliding the way of the Tucker Carlsons of the world. Maybe not that extreme, but not really focusing on the main issues, that are really concerning to this country. Whereas we had this amazing speech by Marco Rubio the other day, really addressing, the communist ideas that are spreading across America and really laying it out for what it is. And he just always seems so focused on what's important, and he doesn't seem to be swaying. So he's definitely my preference.
I agree. I've been saying that for the last couple of months. I think it's evident to me that JD Vance is like the Manchurian candidate for the woke right. And his relationship with Tucker, as a matter of fact, I just sent somebody a text today with Ian Carroll just did a glowing review. Basically, Ian Carroll is now on the campaign party of JD Vance after his interview with Joe Rogan, and that's a real problem for me. I see a lot of issues there. I actually hope we see a Marco Rubio Hegseth ticket. That's what I'm looking forward to. What's your thoughts, Natalie?
Well, I like JD. I'm more concerned about the midterms and everything leading up to it, but I know that like sentiments are shifting on this. It does concern me that JD Vance, if he is actually close to Tucker, that's concerning me. I held out on Tucker for so long. For a long time, I was just Candace. I was like, my line is accusing people of murder, and other than that, like Tucker, Megan, it's all good. Like, I still like these people, but every time he shows up on my feed, he's saying completely dishonest things lately. I don't know what happened. Like when he lied about the story of Esther and claimed that it was a story about Persians, and completely just like left the Jews out of there, that it was a would-be Jewish genocide, and that Billy Graham's son quoted Esther to President Trump because he wanted to tacitly endorse bombing Iran. I mean, just really crazy stuff. This is like scripture, first of all, and it is about a would-be genocide of Jews. To just say Persians is leaving out a very important part. So that was like the beginning for me with Tucker, which is relatively recently. And I do have concerns about anybody who is who's Tucker has a backdoor too. Which is unfortunate because I discovered him at AmFest a couple of years ago, but I was like asleep on him, had never seen his show, anything like that. And I like fell in love with him. I thought he was so wise. But now I'm, I don't know what's happened to some of these people. I feel like I didn't change, but they kind of changed. So I don't know. I'm open to it, but Marco Rubio really does impress me. I kind of always thought he was a little bit like, oh, not much to it. I know he's very accomplished, all of that. But when he held the press conference in lieu of Caroline Leavitt, I just thought he had like such a command of the room, and he had the information, and he took no guff, and he was also humorous. I saw a different side of him that like we've seen in the speeches and all of that. And so I'm definitely, hey, we have two possibly good candidates, maybe only one good candidate. It's kind of a good place to be in, but I'm not totally sold on no JD yet. That'll probably change. I seem to be slow to the party on these things. So,
well, it doesn't matter. Look, there's some things that JD has said that's concerned me, but whatever happens, whoever ends up being the candidate, I'm going to support. I mean,
right.
what we're constantly hearing now is that there's no difference between the right and the left, and that couldn't be more wrong. Like it is such a contrast between what we get from one side or the other. On one side, we get a nation that is completely open, no borders. We're bringing everybody in. We're not going to have secure elections. We're going to have constant fraud taking place in all these blue states like we see in Minnesota, California, and everywhere else. Gun rights being taken down left and right, flock cameras all over the place. That's not what I want. And there's a huge difference. And yeah, we got some turds on the right. There's no doubt about it. There's lots of these politicians that I think are rhinos or whatever you want to call them. But even typically the worst of them is not Ilhan Omar. So yeah, what I hopefully we have a very spirited, vigorous debate during the primaries. And then, hopefully we're able to coalesce, because that's one thing that the left has on us that we're not very good on the right. Like, the left is indivisible. They are blue no matter who, and no matter how crazy they get, these people aren't going to leave, and they're not going to be like, hey, you know what? I don't like what you're doing. I'm just going to stay home and not vote. We're really bad about that on the right. Like, how do we get over that, Samantha?
Well, I think people need to wake up and realize, yes, I agree with you that even the worst people on the right are not as bad as probably the best people on the left.
Yeah.
You just have to think about what the left has given us. We've got trans ideology. We've got boys competing against girls. We've got, no limits on abortion. Now we've got everybody making excuses for Islam, all of these things happening with that in the
Wow.
coming into our country, and something that's obviously directly contradictory to the values of our country, that where none of us have any rights, where their ultimate goal is to destroy the West. They hate America. They hate everything about us. The left, any terrorist group that pops up, the left sides with them. Any depraved, evil idea that the left can come up with, they are complete supporters of. I don't hear any pushback. And while it's nice to think that there are moderate Democrats that still believe in maybe what the Democrat Party used to believe in, they need to realize, like, their party has been taken over. These are communists. These are socialists. So that's what really the choice is. Even if, I'm not completely off board with JD Vance. I don't dislike him. If he was a candidate, I would absolutely vote for him. But even if, we end up with somebody that you don't love as the candidate, you still need to get out and support them, because my view has always been, even if we end up with somebody on the right that we don't absolutely love, at least we can still fight for what we believe in. If we end up with somebody from the left, one of these communists in office, we lose that right completely. We lose our right to fight for what we believe in. So even if it's somebody on the right that we don't, isn't 100% for what we want them to be for, at least we still have the opportunity to exercise our right to vote, to have, debate, to have open conversation. We lose all of that with the left.
Yeah, they're definitely not interested at all in securing elections. Just the opposite is true. It's funny to watch all these Democrats rant and rave over the Epstein files, which, by the way, sat in the Biden sat on those for 4 years and nobody cared about it when they were on the left. But now that Trump is in office, that's all they talk about. And at the same time, you have Tim Walz. He's pardoning a convicted child rapist. And I don't hear anything from them. I don't hear any outrage at all over that. And luckily, Rubio deported that person. But that is insane to me. Like, I've never even heard of that. I'm sure it's happened, but I've never heard of someone pardoning somebody that is, been convicted of pedophilia, and yet we're worried about the Epstein files.
What did he say? It was something like, you can't be judged by your worst day, or something like that, Tim Walz.
Yeah.
Your worst day is being a child predator, I guess. Yeah, the people telling you that there's no difference between the left and the right, like Candace, for one, she's going to be protected. Like, she has security. If there's an open border, that's concerning. But like, if COVID happens again, she's in a red area. She's going to be able to homeschool her kids with her nannies. the rest of us aren't going to be protected. Like COVID was my wake up call. And if you sit it out and you don't vote and you allow these, child rapist pardoning people to get in, and the people with 72 genders, and abort the babies any month of the term, like you spoke about in Colorado, you are ultimately not going to be protected by these things, especially if like another COVID happens. So people selling you this BS are not in your shoes.
Right.
They're speaking from a place of privilege, for sure. If
Yes.
you want to talk about privilege.
Well said. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get into motivation, because we could talk about that all night, and I think it's a exercise in futility. But it does appear, and he's even stated it at this point, and I've been kind of calling this for a while now, but it does appear that the Tucker Carlsons and Joe Kents and all these people, they are moving for a third party. And I think the intent here is to make sure that we do lose the midterms and we do lose 2028, so that they can basically create a new Republican Party that's going to usurp, I think that's their plan, I don't think it's going to work, but usurp MAGA as this extreme isolationist, decouple from Israel. Like, that's pretty much their platform. Is that what it looks like to you guys?
I think that that's probably what they're trying to do. I mean, these people, they used to be considered intelligent to me. It's not that I think that they're stupid, but I just don't understand how they believe that that's going to be successful. And I honestly think that they think they have far more support for that than they really do. I don't see a path forward where that is going to be successful. And I mean, just to kind of add a little note to this, when it comes to their audiences and the people that listen to them, I don't know if it's so much conservatives and MAGA that's listening to them, or if they've really just attracted more of that maybe moderate leftist audience, because it seems like a lot of really conservative people are still distancing themselves from Tucker and Candace. So I just don't think that they have the support that they think they do. I think they're going to try. I think it's having a negative effect to some extent, but I don't think it's as big as maybe a lot of people think it is. And maybe I just have rose-colored glasses. Maybe I'm just a little optimistic, but I don't know.
Well, I think we have indication of that, because I mean, I was really concerned about this before the primaries, and I was 100% convinced that Massey was going to win and Paxton was going to lose. And if you looked at X, that was the clear indicator that, Tucker Carlson was pushing Massey, Candace Owens, Joe Kent, all these people. I was like, oh, we're cooked. And come to find out, guess what? They definitely didn't overpower the influence that Trump has, for sure. And Massey lost bigly, as Trump would say.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if we lose the midterms, which I don't want to call it before it's over, but it does sort of feel like that right now. I think Tucker and his ilk can sit there and say, well, I told you so. Like, it's because of Israel, and it's because the Iran conflict. And so possibly maybe they think that's like a boon to this idea of a third way, which has proven unsuccessful, like basically every single time it's been tried. I'm more concerned about the Democratic Socialists, because I feel like we are ceding the territory to them on affordability. And I think that if the Democrats, I've long since thought that if the Democrats could stop talking about like their trans nonsense and like 72 genders, and if they would just go back to talking about affordability, even if it's socialism, I think that they're a real threat to us, because the stuff that like turns people off is the crazy wokeness. But a lot of people obviously are struggling financially. And it goes back to what we spoke about, Gary. I don't think that we teach about the ills of socialism. And I think people my generation, which is very old and also younger, don't actually know what the problem is. They just know they can't afford stuff. And so with the way that these DSA candidates have been successful in a lot of places, I think that is like a real concern. And I would like to see the Republicans kind of like take back that territory on actually, no, we're here for affordability too.
Yeah. And, what's beneficial to Tucker is if we lose the midterms, it'll be Israel's fault. But if we win the midterms, it'll also be Israel's fault. So He's lucked out that way. Let's take a few
That's
questions,
perfect.
and I'm sure that'll generate some conversation there too. Hey, Gary, just letting you know, I'm sitting through ads with my ad blocker down just to give you YouTube revenue as thanks for what you do. Well, thank you very much. I'm just mad that YouTube is making any revenue. Trash Can told Yi and CK, whoever controls the culture controls the politics. She had a plan the whole time. I guess we're talking about Candace.
Candace.
Yeah, Trash Can. I haven't heard that one before. She has a clip of Neil and some other pilots speaking on today. I honestly can't understand how people with military careers can be in agreement with this narrative. Look, folks, the military is not a monolith. I mean, there's people from all over, all walks of life, all ideologies that come into the military. And unfortunately, some of the voices that I believe least represent the military end up going forward. I think most of us in the military, especially from special operations, like we don't want to be in the spotlight. And,
I would be interested to hear your thoughts on that. I don't want to put you on the spot if
No,
you already spoke about it.
no.
I think that person's talking about Rob O'Neill.
Yeah.
She was playing obviously that interview. Do you have, as a professional, do you have a
Yeah,
thoughts on
I
that?
don't
Just
think
curious.
that. Well, first of all, I respect Rob for his service. There's a lot of controversy around Rob. There's a lot of people that came from SEAL Team 6 that says that he's making claims that aren't true. I can neither confirm or deny that, and I don't think of him one way or the other regarding that. What I will say is that I believe that he doesn't know what he's talking about. And I think, and I've said this, if Rob is watching or somebody gets the information to him, I would love to have a private conversation with him. And I'd love for him to go through the evidence that I have, and I'd like to see what kind of conclusion he comes to after that. There's too many people out there that see it, just like everybody else, people in professional status that get in front of cameras, they see a clip or two, and most of these people, I've had conversations with people like that, and come to find out they aren't well informed. And I think that if he had the same body of evidence that I have, that I could show him and walk him through and talk about the ballistics, I think he would most likely come to a different conclusion. The downside of this is, it's hard for people like Rob and people that went out there and gave a professional opinion to walk it back. That takes a lot of humility. I'm not sure that he would. And I don't know. I don't know one way or the other, but I just don't think that he's well informed on the subject. I don't think he could come to that conclusion. And be. It's just
I was surprised he was talking about the exploding mic, which I almost feel like you don't need evidence to know that that's a little bit crazy, because we would, like, I don't want to step on his toes. He's the expert, but we would see that with our own eyes, right? And that's completely impossible. So it was surprising to me that he said that.
Yeah, it's the dumbest of all theories, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. Like, we've had Matt Tardio on, who is a former Green Beret as well, who was actually an 18 Charlie, an explosives expert. We've talked about that. Long before that, I thought I debunked this pretty thoroughly at one point. I mean, it defies physics. You can't have an explosion that doesn't have any observable evidence of said explosion, but it be so energetic that it kills a man. And it's so energetic that it destroys the microphone housing. And by the way, they're saying that it's with Petten. Petten has a flash point of around 4,000 degrees centigrade, literally hotter than the sun. And yet we don't see any smoke. It doesn't burn the shirt. I mean, it's just stupid. It really is. And going back a few months ago, it would regularly come up in my comments. And I'm like, look, here's what I'm going to say about the exploding mic. It's so dumb that Candace Owens hasn't even adopted it yet. And yet here we are, because she's scraping the bottom of the barrel. It's retarded. I mean, it really is. It's just dumb. Like, and then how do you explain that we don't hear anything from that? Like, no, right. I could take a firecracker, put it underneath Charlie's shirt, let it go off, and people are like, oh, look, something happened. You don't even have a residue on his white, clean shirt in that location. It's just dumb.
Yeah. Did you guys see the Fax Me video where Steven blows up a road mic? And
I haven't seen it.
It explodes and it burns the shirt. It's on a mannequin, and there's smoke and there's a sound that's not like a gunshot. It does everything you would think an exploding thing would do, essentially, and none of it happened. And then Robbie Starbuck made a video today, and he brought up a good point that when you see the videos from that day, everybody turns to look from the direction, or most people do, from the direction of the shot. So I guess if she's trying to say that someone was letting off a decoy shot or something like that, but people know what they saw even there that day without it being like propagandized into their head that he was shot. They know right away that he was shot and from what direction.
Yeah, I've talked to over a dozen eyewitnesses, and all of them have the exact same story. And this is why we haven't seen Candace bring on eyewitnesses. I don't doubt that there's an exception to that. I'm sure there's a couple of people that, may have different beliefs or whatever else. But so far, 12 out of 12 or so that I've talked to, every single person, that eyewitness that I've talked to, has pretty much the exact same story. He was shot, and I think that Tyler Robinson is the one that did it. So I don't know where else to go with that. But I would love to have that conversation with Rob. I hate the dog thing. In my jurisdiction, we had dogs certified to bite, chase, then drug dogs, then bomb dogs. They're all certified in different things because the dog needs to learn through training. That's right. And dogs have bad days too. When I brought that whole thing up, and Sam, you weren't here, but we were talking about how Candace interjects things into the conversation. They start getting accepted as fact. She stated that there was, she had a source that told her that the dogs, well, first what she said was, which is completely, having been there and seen the site where the gun was found, that first the police lined up arm in arm and did a grid search. So they didn't find anything. And then they had the dogs go over that area. They didn't find anything. And then the FBI showed up, and then it's like, oh, hey, sheriff's deputy, whatever, go look right over there. And suddenly they found the rifle. This is not backed by anything. That was something that she interjected into the conversation through an anonymous source with unverifiable information, that the intent was to plant the idea that the evidence was planted, that it was falsified evidence. And by the way, I had people reach out to me from the ground that told me that wasn't true. And it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't even how would they even know where the rifle was? How would they know that this armed, because they're looking for an armed and dangerous suspect for multiple hours. They were still treating it like an active shooting event. They weren't looking for a cached rifle. They wouldn't even know that. Like, you'd be looking for an armed individual that ran off with the gun. And they found that rifle in fairly quick order, just because they were tracking the person that they saw jump off the roof. So anyways, but that's what she does. That's what she does. Propaganda is her go-to. Well,
unfortunately, she's extremely effective at communicating that propaganda. So it sounds good, but it's just none of it's true.
It's not. It's not even that believable. That's the thing that's so frustrating to me, is like sitting around watching these people and then getting in some of these spaces and things like that, and like having these discussions with people, and it's like, well, you don't have any evidence for that. And it's different than that. It is become such a religion. We believe that faith is believing in something without evidence, right? They go beyond that. They believe in something in spite of evidence against it. That's what's wild. And then whatever gaps of information they have, they just use their imagination. They just fill it in with, whatever, like exploding microphones and invisible lasers from the moon on a Jew base. Like, like, where do we go from here?
Right.
My friend Andrew Wilson, Brian, whatever, offered Candace $180,000 to debate the issue, and she's refused. Yep. She won't get in. I'll debate her. I'll happily debate her. Gary, I did the math a while back. 6+ million subscribers on YouTube, average 1.3 million views. That's 0.0173% of the world population. Yeah, and that was one of the things I was talking about the other night. Somebody brought up, like, Gary, do you think that she has it set up, or someone has it set up? And I think this is Russia, China, and the jihadists all working together to where she's kind of guaranteed a certain amount of views. And I do. And the evidence that we have for that is, like, she could have a bad video that has like 200,000, 300,000 views in the day. And by the next day, it always hits right around 1.3 million. 1.3 million almost every single time. If you go look through her videos, they're all right around there. 1.3, some of them get bigger, but 1.3 seems to be the number they're going for whatever reason. Wonderful conversation, Gary. Thank you for hosting NB and to Nat for the wonderful explanation of your Christian journey.
Jay Witt.
Oh, Jay Witt.
Thank you, Jay Witt.
Thank you guys there. Did you grow up in the church of the firstborn? I don't know who that question is to. I think that's to you, Natalie.
Is that just being the firstborn child, or is that an actual?
I don't.
I'm not the firstborn, if that's the question.
It sounds like an actual church or something, a denomination.
Oh, I thought they were maybe trying to be like cute.
You know what? Whoever you are, going to spend some more money and clarify that.
Clarify.
Sam, have you ever heard of the Church of the Firstborn?
I don't know what that is.
All right. Victor marks 1 here because people are waking up. I agree. I agree with that. Natalie, please agree with me. The only way to neutralize candidates on jury is for the prosecutor to call Candace as hostile witness. Also, she claims to have evidence she hasn't shared with police obstruction, ? What's your guys' thought on that?
That's a good point, I guess, right? Well, what does it say? The only way to neutralize candidates on jury is for the prosecutor to call Candace as a hostile witness. What does that mean?
I think Grace is trying to say, to show the jury essentially that Candace is everybody's worried about Candace followers ending up on the jury.
Okay.
And the good news is, folks, that is so unlikely to happen. I know it feels so big on social media. Me and Nate Vance were talking about this the other night, and it's like we're talking about less than probably 1% of the population, especially if we start weeding out bots and everything.
Well, that's what Texas Mother just said, that it's less than 1% of the population in her super chat.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, yeah, 100%. So it's probably not as big as a deal as it feels. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to have a good jury selection process. So trust the system. Trust the plan, people. Just trust the plan. I really don't have money to spend on this, but the Holy Spirit in me wants to protect Erica and Rex Gary as champion for our side. Well, thank you, Grace. We appreciate that. It's very nice of you.
Yeah, you've been great on this, Gary. It's very helpful to have you, especially
well,
with
you guys have been too.
And
again, I just hope that people continue. And it's not about Candace, it's about the lies. And anytime that there's these types of lies, and I hate that every time I put a super chat, I turn you into like Mr. Wilson from Home Improvement there.
Speaking out.
Barely see you. But yeah, that's like awesome. I mean, it offends me. It offends me down to my core that like these ideas, in the same way that I've always fought back on liberal retard policies too, the trans activism, all the things. Like I just can't sit here and be quiet about it. And I just hope that other people continue to understand that like we need you in the fight and you got to speak out about this, or this ideology, like any ideology, will continue to spread. Mm-hmm. And it's all your fault, Natalie. It's all your fault. Please, Gary, don't dismiss the idea of the prosecution calling Candy as a witness because some Candyites might make it to the jury. We need to cross-examine Candy.
I don't know enough legally about that, but I don't even want her involved. She's so irrelevant to the whole thing. Like the more we see of the trial, which unfortunately is so far away, the more clear it's going to become that she does not matter. Like these defense attorneys, seasoned defense attorneys, are not bringing up anything that she's saying. They're not, and they would be because their client faces the death penalty. So I feel like the more we see of the adults in the room, including the defense, the more it's going to be obvious that Candace, is out to lunch and not relevant to any of this, to reality. Sorry, I stole your question, but I don't even want her to be questioned as a witness because that like she wants to be important. She wants people to talk about her and talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree. And look, like you said, we have, according to every lawyer I've talked to, it's like 18 months to 2 years before we get to this trial.
Yeah. And
I hope that she's just been, exposed for the loon that she is. And I hope that, a Candace follower is now a pejorative. And I think that's where we're headed. And I think, again, we need to keep the pressure on her and continue to expose her lies, just like we would expose anybody. When Obama, I wasn't even on social media, but anyone that listened, when Obama was pushing Obamacare, I was like, this is crazy. Like, this is a bad idea. It's the same thing. it's just lies. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just
Yeah,
jump in for a second.
please.
I think that's probably why when Candace first started coming out with all of these theories, in the beginning, I wanted to think that she had maybe some intention of getting to the bottom of it, and obviously we didn't have as much information as we do now. But I think what really surprised me about people latching on to what she was saying is that on the right, we've seen what deception looks like for so long. When we see it coming from the left, when we see them making extreme claims with no evidence and just making something sound a lot more, just to hype it up more than it really is, or to throw out I can't think of my words right now, but just to throw out things that draw people in and that sound really good and that make a really good story, but don't have any evidence. And this is something that we have been fighting against for so long, and to see so many people fall for it with Candace Owens when it's something that we've been aware of from the left, I think was really, really surprising to me. But as far as, being a Candace follower, being a pejorative, I mean, when someone says that they believe Candace Owens, I tell them not to brag about that, because it's just not something I would tell people. And it has been really surprising. But I thought that the other commenter made a really good point when they said that, they're not even asking her to come in because they believe that whatever evidence she has behind the scenes is legitimate. Because if she had some kind of evidence and she was withholding it from them, that could be obstruction of the investigation. And they're not even calling her in for that. So obviously, on all fronts, this woman has no credibility. The legal team is not reaching out to her. They don't even think that, what she supposedly had that she has that she's not telling people about is legit. And you would think that that would be a wake-up call, but unfortunately, this seems to be a lot of people's replacement for afternoon soap operas. This is what Dana Lash was saying the other day. My mom grew up watching General Hospital and Days of Our Lives, but unfortunately, today's soap opera is the Candace Owens show.
Yes.
But the unfortunate side of it is these are real people's lives that we're talking about here, and they don't seem to care, which is scary.
Yeah, no, they don't. And again, you got to give her credit. She's created an entire new genre of entertainment, and that is like this, murder mystery, choose your own adventure. I'm deputizing you all. You get to participate. As a matter of fact, I don't even have to do anything. I don't even have to get my fat ass out of this camera, in front of this camera. Like, I'm going to have you do all of the stuff for me and put it into my tip box. And I'm just going to read it. And I'm going to make millions upon millions of dollars doing it. I mean, these people are excited. Like, they have purpose. And like, as women, is it just as simple as like people are living desperate lives that they're just that, I don't know, like they don't have purpose in their life? Is it that
well
simple?
This does go back to Samantha's earlier point about women like not voting. We did fight this so long on the right, and now so many people have been swayed by a woman's feelings and her dreams, and she's a loudmouth sort of feminist woman, kind of like a boss babe woman, and we're following her like she's our god. And that was something that we fought against, ostensibly against the left, right? And so it is a little bit odd that we've now been taken with a woman and her feelings. But I think this would not be able to happen if COVID didn't happen. If the response to COVID, I feel like the response to COVID woke people like me up, and some people took it too far, where now we never believe the government. We're just going to take the opposing side of the government, even if we voted for the current administration, which a lot of these people, I think, did. And when you do that, you're not thinking for yourself. That's not critical thinking. You're still being led around by the nose by the government. The government is telling you what to believe by you taking the opposite position all the time. It's two opposite sides of the same coin, where you're still being led by the government as opposed to actually assessing each case on its own merits. And, they like to claim that they're the side saying don't mask, don't vaccinate, and we're the side forcing them to. We're not defending the government. We're just simply saying there's no evidence to suggest that our government, our military assassinated Charlie Kirk. That's not being a bootlicker. That's not defending the government. It's not even telling you to believe and trust the government. It's just telling you to actually believe your eyes and believe the evidence. And you can't just spend your whole life being in opposition to the government, because that's not independent thought.
No, you're right. Like the government abused us, and it was the Biden government, by the way, that did most of the things. Trump was involved too at the beginning. There's definitely some culpability on his end at the beginning of it, but by and large, what we saw was the weaponization of the DOJ. We saw January 6th. We saw all the COVID nonsense. That was the left, and yes, we shouldn't trust the government, but guess what? We shouldn't trust social media personalities either, because they lie a lot more than the government. And to be so focused like there's the government, everything they say I'm not going to pay attention to. We voted that deep state government out, and they're just over here and they flanked us, and now they're like pushing the same trash and the same exact psyops just through people on our own side. Like they're in our midst now, and you can't even wake up and realize this. And I think this is like a gullibility filter. All right, there's those of us that like saw COVID and were like, you know what? I'm not buying into this. This doesn't make sense. Masking doesn't work. You know what? The COVID vaccine isn't making us healthier. It isn't preventing the spread. To me, it was obvious. Like you don't have to have like this, I don't know, this super deep discernment to figure that out. So that was pretty obvious. And the next filter is this right here. It's like you're still gullible if you're believing all this stuff without any evidence whatsoever. And I don't know. Hopefully, people will wake up. But it's fun. It's not fun. It's sad.
I think it gives people like it's kind of like an attitude of like, oh, they're cool too. Like you're rebellious, like you're against the government. I know that sounds juvenile, but I feel like a lot of people find that like titillating, that like you're a rebel, because we don't have anything to rebel against. We've already won all the rights. We've conquered all the territories. And now it's like, oh, you're rebelling against the government. Like, don't tread on me, which I like, but we're taking it a little too far where we just, we're not actually engaging in critical thought. We're just like fighting the government by watching Candace Owens.
Yeah, you're right. It's like, oh, bro, you're one of those Fed sloppers.
Yeah. Yes.
Get out of here. You're so gullible. It's sad. I was sucked in. I told my son years ago, I wish he could marry Candace. Yikes. Now incubus or succubus. She is the woman that rides the beast.
Your son dodged a bullet. I guess maybe I shouldn't say that actually. Apologies. But no, you wouldn't want Candace for a daughter-in-law.
No. Just ask Lord Farmer. I don't think he's sleep about it. Yeah. I missed a bunch of stuff to make dinner, but I'm out here. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you, Colton. First of all, the 19th Amendment would be repealed. Your wife would be making that dinner. Why am I so stupid to think the prosecution should call Candace to neutralize candidates?
I don't think it's stupid.
It's not stupid.
I don't think it's, I guess she would look stupid too, right? If she were on the witness stand in the same way at that CNN interview, the first one she did, she does not know what she's talking about, but she never has someone who's not friendly to her. She's never talking. Victor Marx is like the only guy she's talked to that's not friendly. So it would expose her as not knowing what she's talking about.
Yeah.
I feel like that's been, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Ladies first.
I was just saying, I feel like that's been exposed over and over again. So I don't feel like calling her to neutralize candidates would make a difference in that. And this trial is not about Candace Owens. Right. It's not about debunking her, even though that needs to happen because people need to realize that she's a liar and she's deceptive. I truly believe she's a walking demon at this point. But that's not what this trial is about. It's not about putting her on the stand, and it's not about trying to give her any more credibility than she thinks she already has. And I think involving her in the trial just for the sake of doing that would add more fuel to her fire than do anything else. So, I mean, obviously, if the court felt like there was a need to do that, I would respect that decision. But the trial is not about Candace Owens. It's about justice for Charlie Kirk and for Erica Kirk and making sure that the right person ends up behind bars. So that's I don't think it's a stupid position. I don't want us to get caught up in doing something just for the sake of making Candace Owens look stupid, because she already does. So
bringing her, all that would do is stroke her self-importance. The other thing, I think there's a real argument to be made that it would prejudice the jury against Tyler Robinson. And I don't want that either. Like, we have a justice system that is supposed to be, everything's supposed to be handled by the rule of law and in accordance with the law and accordance with the Constitution. And he needs a fair trial. And I really do. I think that would actually prejudice the jury against him. It's like, oh, this is the person that's advocating for all this nonsense. Yeah, you're guilty. She wore daddy's home shirt going to, that was, I don't even
Pretty gross.
It was one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen. If you don't have a spiritual or emotional reaction to that shirt, you need either mental help or you need to talk to God, and probably both. Yeah, I have the answer. His name is Jesus. I agree with you, Patriot Lady. Unfortunately, there are a lot of military personnel that still believe in the DNC. Not sure how or why. 22+ year Army combat veteran. Thank you for your service, Gary. We love you, buddy. And I agree. I mean, all walks of life end up in the military. Thank you all for not being crazy.
You too, Kyle.
Yeah. Candy can affect the election. Look, I am concerned that she'll have an effect on, and all of this will have an effect on the midterms. It only takes a couple percentage points. I'm hoping it doesn't have, I hope we see exactly what we saw with Massey, that it doesn't have the effect that we perceive it to be. I think there's a big difference between what we perceive online and the reality. I think less than 1 or 2% are even paying attention to this, and not all of them are supportive of Candace. Matter of fact, I think the majority that are even online are not supportive of Candace. Just Candace supporters on the left are the loudest voices. So we'll see. We'll see what the midterms are. Maybe the Jews will step in and save us. I don't know. We'll see. Gary, this is the answer. The Rush Limbaugh cookie sale refers back to Rush Stock 93, a massive celebrity-style bake sale held in Fort Collins, Colorado on May 1993. Who's in? Let's do it. I'm in. We should do it in a different state other than Colorado. I think we'll end up getting some tainted cookies and brownies that
Probably
might turn
Don't do it, guys.
Next thing you know, we'll be a bunch of flaming liberals. Gidget 714 came in the chat with propaganda, and I think it should spread far and wide. I still like the queen of DEI, or the DEI queen, personally. I think that irritates her a lot. Well, ladies, look, thank you so much for coming on. I got to be honest with you. This was this first time I had like 2 guests on, and I don't think I did very well. But with that being said, you guys filled the gaps and made sure that it was still a coherent conversation.
I think it was great. Yeah, you're great, Gary. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we do this again. Maybe we'll try to a few more times to see if it gets a little bit better flow. But you all were the test dummies, so no offense.
You're welcome.
You guys are great. Do me a favor, both of you, starting off with Sam. Give everybody some encouraging words out there.
I think, just like I said before, there is always something worth fighting for. And I think it's encouraging to know that social media is not real life. People out there are normal. People are interested in a conversation. Your friends want to know what you have to think, and don't be afraid to let people know what you think and what you believe, because they're not afraid to do it. So you shouldn't be afraid to either. But again, social media is not real life. People are normal. I think generally we still have a lot of the same goals. So be encouraged by that.
Oh, love it. Natalie?
Encouraging words. The views are going down. God has already won. And I just urge people to think about things logically. If Tyler Robinson were truly a government patsy, I think necessarily the case against him cannot be weak. It has to be strong, right? Because they planted evidence against him. And so saying that the case is weak and also he's a patsy is really illogical. I also think Tyler Robinson would not be with us if he were a government patsy, because why would you let this patsy go to trial? And so just continue to think about things logically, because this is an instance where reality makes more sense than the conspiracy.
I agree. We do have one more super chat that just came in. She said she's done with politics. Marks called her out on that when she encouraged people to not vote for him. Whoops. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's done with politics on one side as she continues to invite people like Hunter Biden and Anna Kasparian on to, again, grow her audience on the left. I mean, that's again
the opposite of what Charlie stood for. Charlie believed that Christians actually had a moral obligation to vote. So when we went back to your and my conversation about how she's hitting all the points, that was the opposite of what Charlie hired her for and probably liked her for. That's another one, because voting was very important to him, obviously, and he thought we had a moral obligation.
Oh, I agree. And look, somebody said something to me the other day about I should just stop, I'm not going to win, or something along those lines. And look, they're here to demoralize us. And by the way, that is Satan through and through. But sometimes you don't fight because you're guaranteed to win. You fight because it's the right thing. And you don't sit around and engage what's going on and, hey, can I win this? It's worth fighting. I don't care if she sues me. I don't care if these other people sue me that are constantly threatened. Baron Coleman's threatening to sue me. Elizabeth Lane's threatening to sue me. I don't care. You can take everything I have, and it doesn't matter to me, because guess what? I'll still have my wife, my kids, my dignity. And I don't care if I win or lose. It's just the right thing to do. And once you get to that point and you're not afraid to lose, nothing can stop you. And that's where we, like, folks, we're going to lose this country if people don't start standing up. And I'm so thankful for both of you and voices like yours that, in spite of everything, you have the courage to stand up for this country. We have the greatest country on earth. It is worth fighting for, and it's not guaranteed. Tyranny is one generation away, and we need to keep focused. And unfortunately, whether you like it or not, this is the battlefield right here. It's the information war. They're not going to defeat us by launching missiles in the United States. They're going to defeat us by putting this information and convincing us to give up this country willingly, and we can't. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, ladies, for coming on. I look forward to having you on again in the future, and we appreciate everybody's support. Make sure you share this. Make sure you go down in the description below and follow both of these ladies. Share their content. Support them in every way that you possibly can. And you ladies don't go anywhere, but for everyone else, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.